Chapter 91. The Dragon. Monster Siege. Anyone who's played a large-scale online game would be familiar with this. If this were a game, the people of Donghai would be pumped up, eager to show off their skills. After all, it's just a game. You can always respawn after you die. But this isn't a game. This is reality. Death is real death. When they saw the overwhelming horde of monsters bearing down on them, Donghai City plunged into panic. A dragon? Is that a dragon? Dragons really exist. Run. Run. We can't possibly win. Where can we run? Let's surrender. Maybe they won't kill us. Dream on. We're just food to these monsters. They'll devour us. What do we do? Mom, I don't want to die. Grandpa, I don't want to die either. Some people cried, some went insane, some were completely dumbstruck, and no one even thought of fighting back. Faced with the sky filled with monsters, many of them terrifying creatures only seen in myths and legends, no one could muster the will to fight, or even figure out where to run. Just when everyone was sinking into despair, a figure actually jumped onto the city wall, pointing a massive sword towards the charging monster horde. It was Liu Yong. The leaders of the city's original 4 major factions were all dead. He was the most respected person in the city right now. Of course he had to step up. Have you even fought yet, and you already think you're going to lose? Liu Yong roared, frustrated. Pick up your weapons. Let these beasts see the courage of humanity. Even if we die, we'll die standing. It's just a dragon. Think about how much experience you'll get for killing it. All the good stuff it'll drop. But before Liu Yong could finish speaking, he heard several people below say in despair. It's no use, Boss Liu, we can't win. We really can't. Boss Liu, why don't you lead us to escape? Maybe there's a chance of survival. Boss Liu, since you want to fight, how about you stay here and hold back these monsters while we escape? Yeah, if we manage to escape, Boss Liu, don't worry, we'll definitely get you a memorial built as a great hero of mankind. That's a great idea. Boss Liu, sacrifice yourself for us. Boss Liu, please, help us hold back the monsters, even for just a minute. Liu Yong listened blankly to the words of his fellow countrymen, and for a moment, he felt his beliefs completely collapsing. Why? Why was it like this? He thought that if he raised his voice, even if he couldn't get everyone to cheer, he could at least get a small group. But why? Not a single one. Even his students shook their heads in despair. Where was humanity's bloodthirst? Why was there only selfishness and cowardice left? Mr. Liu, it's not that we don't want to fight, but the enemy is too strong. So strong that it's despairing. Su Chong said with a wry smile. If there was even a sliver of hope, he wouldn't be like this. Liu Yong opened his mouth, but found that he couldn't refute it at all. Among the monsters, there were not only terrifying dragons, but also many species they had never seen before. And at a glance, there were no less than 100 elite-level monsters. It took perfect teamwork from their squad to eliminate one elite-level monster. 100? How could they fight this? Mr. Liu, don't you understand? In this apocalypse, the one thing you can never save is the human heart. Just then, a voice rang out. Immediately afterwards, a figure slowly flew out from the very center of the city. Behind him were a pair of golden wings, shining brightly in the sunlight, dazzlingly beautiful. Liu Zhan looked down with a stern expression, like a god. This was the feeling of flight. It could only be described with one word. Awesome. Of course. The price for being awesome was also extremely high. His gold coins were decreasing rapidly at a rate of 10 per second. In other words, it cost 600 gold coins to fly this thing for a minute, a complete money pit. Fortunately, after killing those so-called gang leaders, his gold coins had reached a terrifying amount of over 10,000. Enough to burn for a good while. He did this not for anything else, but to show off. He had to admit, Liu Zhan was a rather vain person. Looking at the people below, all staring at him with shocked expressions, his vanity was greatly satisfied. If his only goal at the beginning of his rebirth was to survive, then now, Liu Zhan already wanted to pursue more things. And as Liu Zhan flew out, on the ground, with a rumbling sound, a large number of mutated beasts also rushed out from the center of the city, following below Liu Zhan, led by Dewang and Bei Lao He. They wanted to fly too. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough electricity, so they couldn't fly and could only run. When passing by the crowd, a large number of mutated beasts even made sounds of disdain and contempt. Humans didn't dare to fight. Then they, the mutated beasts, would fight. Soon, Zhan had already reached the city wall, folded his wings, and slowly landed beside Liu Yong. Brother Liu, Liu Yong opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Zhan waved his hand, stopping him. Although Liu Yong was strong, he was far from being at the level of a human emperor, or even a divine general. And to be a great, successful saint, you had to have extremely strong strength to support you. Clearly, Liu Yong was not there yet. If things continued like this, one day he would die a tragic death. Rather than that, it was better for him to wake up sooner. After all, Zhan still hoped that this Mr. Liu could survive. Ignoring Liu Yong, Zhan looked ahead and couldn't help but sigh. What a big show! From the strongest and most well-known dragon race, to its subspecies earth dragons, as well as yakshas, gargoyles, cyclops, and other high-ranking races. In the air, there were even griffins, dragon eagles. Although the various races of monsters were extremely at odds, and could even be said to be hostile, with the dragon race as the big brother, they all had to behave themselves. This attack was clearly launched by that red dragon. Zhan frowned. In his memory, this attack had never happened in his previous life. Super species like dragons shouldn't appear on the market so early. In game terms, it was too game-breaking. Therefore, for a long time in the early stages of the apocalypse, unless you blindly ran into dragon territory, it was impossible to encounter creatures like dragons. Even during the era of the 8 emperors, it was rare to see super races of the dragon level personally come down to fight. Could it be because of his appearance that caused the butterfly effect? It was very possible. Forget it, don't think so much. Since they were here, they had to fight. Of course, Zhan wasn't doing this to save the humans behind him. In his eyes, these monsters were all experience in transmuting corpses, especially that dragon. He was so damn hungry for it. Zhan didn't understand the dragon race, so he naturally didn't know what level this dragon was. But no matter what, it definitely wouldn't exceed elite level. In other words, if he killed it, he could transmutate. Just thinking about it. Transmuting a dragon undead. Just thinking about it made his blood boil. Chapter 92. Life and Death. Roar, roar, roar. That big worm looks delicious, Brother Liu. I want to eat it. Dewang leaped lightly and was already next to Zhan, drooling as he looked at the dragon. His mutated beast minions had also arrived at the city gate, ready to fight. Monsters were powerful energy and nourishment to them, although there was a billion more food in front of them, and it was a bit stronger. But so what? Mutated beasts had very simple minds, without so many twists and turns. As for the humans, just roll back and hide. Woof, woof, woof. That's mine, 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 mine. Bei Laohe was always targeting the big tiger. Stop talking nonsense. This dragon is mine. Zhan waved his hand and began to distribute the spoils. See that earth dragon? That one goes to my good brother Dewang. As for Laohe, you eat that cyclops, plenty of meat. Liu Yong listened from the side, his heart pounding in his chest. Was this something he was allowed to hear? Inside the city, a group of desperate humans also ignited a little hope. After all, the battle between the 2 lightning balls in the sky above the city was still vivid in their minds. It was really strong. Maybe they could really slay the dragon. Of course, it was impossible for them to go to battle themselves. At most, they would wave flags and cheer from the rear. In this strange atmosphere, the monster army finally arrived in front of the city gate. The dragon in the sky slightly extended its claws, and the monsters that were still charging suddenly stopped, silent, like well-trained troops. The dragon's aura was not to be offended, regardless of race. Under that immense pressure, even those mutated beasts dared not make a sound, and retreated a few steps. As for the humans in the city, they were even more unbearable. Nearly half of them were already kneeling on the ground, not daring to look directly at the dragon. The only ones who were unfazed and looked at the dragon were Zhan and the 2 mutated beasts beside him. Roar! You little bastards, all stand up straight. It's just a big worm. Dewang roared, although he couldn't help but feel a little intimidated. But in any case, he couldn't lose in terms of momentum. Then the dragon ignored De Wang's roar and stared straight at Lu Zhan with its huge dragon eyes. Death should not exist in this world. In an instant, Lu Zhan's pupils shrank, and his heart was filled with turmoil. Death should not exist in this world. What did it mean? No wonder this scene had never appeared in his previous life, because this was all aimed at him. Death, other than him, the Necromancer. Who else could it be? Before this, Lu Zhan was just a little suspicious. Maybe he was just unlucky. But at this moment, he was 100% sure that this world was targeting him. Or rather, some big figures who controlled this world were targeting him. At first, they might have just used some accidental sudden events to achieve the goal of making him disappear unnoticed. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. And the appearance of the Tower of Trials, and his promotion to Necromantic Dominator, made those big figures realize his enormous potential, and they stopped pretending, targeting him everywhere. Even now, they had even sent out a dragon. Why? Just because he represented death? Life and death were two opposite sides. Whether humans, monsters, or mutated beasts, they were all on the side of life. And he was on the side of death. So he shouldn't exist in this world? Bullshit. Since someone didn't want him to live, then he had to live even more. Not only live, but also live better and stronger. Death shouldn't exist in this world? Then he would let death completely engulf this world. A surge of uncontrollable ferocity rose in Lu Zhan's heart. In the words of a cliché, "My life is in my own hands." Being targeted by the whole world, who was afraid of that? Why didn't those big figures directly kill him? Probably because they themselves were restricted by some kind of rule. So this dragon should be the biggest trump card the other party could use. As long as he survived this, Lu Zhan had nothing to fear. After an intense mental game, Lu Zhan took a deep breath. A smile appeared on his face, and he looked at the dragon in the sky. "What? You can speak human language too. What's your name?" He was going to slay the dragon and turn it into an undead. He had to say, he was a little excited. He needed to calm down first. "I am Onglais, we dragons, no matter what language, can master in an instant." The moment the dragon Onglais spoke, it seemed that the entire city was ignited, and the temperature rose by dozens of degrees. It believed that the current situation was already under control, so it didn't mind saying a few more words. It wasn't easy for it to come out this time, so it naturally wanted to play a little longer. If it completed the task too early, it would have to return to that damn Mount Jumaluma. That place was too deserted. Thinking of this, Onglais couldn't help but curse. It was all the fault of that damn covenant of all races. "Onglais, what's your mom's name?" Lu Zhan nodded and asked again. "My mother's name is..." Onglais was about to answer when he immediately realized something was wrong. What was going on? It was a great dragon. How could it answer every question? So it roared angrily. "Death incarnate, are you going to die yourself? Or do I have to kill you?" "Roar, roar, roar, big worm. What are you talking about? Are you going to fight? I'm going to start eating." At this moment, De Wang couldn't bear it any longer and roared directly. There was so much food in front of him, but he couldn't eat it. It was too tempting, especially in his seriously lacking state. But the pressure this big worm gave him was too great. If the big worm didn't move, he wouldn't dare to mess around. "Woof, woof, woof. That's right, that's right." Beilao He also quickly echoed. Onglais wasn't angry, but suddenly thought of something and said, "You are also living beings. You should stand on the side of life, and he is death. Are you sure you want to be with him? Being with death, you have to be prepared to be devoured by death." After listening, De Wang looked at Lu Zhan impatiently. "Roar, roar, roar. What is this big worm babbling about? Are you death? Aren't you called Lu Zhan?" Lu Zhan looked at the big tiger and asked, "I do represent death. Are you afraid? If you are afraid, you can pretend that you don't have a friend like me." De Wang instantly got angry. "Roar, roar, 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 roar. Afraid? I, De Wang, will be afraid. I, De Wang, keep my word. You are my good friend, and you will be my good friend for life." "Roar, roar, roar, roar. This big worm wants to hit you. That's hitting me. My good friend Lu Zhan. Just say the word, and I'll rush up and give it a big slap." Lu Zhan smiled and touched the tiger's head. It seemed that he wasn't at war with the whole world. At least he still had friends. Chapter 93, The Human Heart. Unreasonable. Angli's huge dragon eyes revealed a hint of anger. He thought that the big tiger was quite strong, and if possible, he could consider taking him as a younger brother. But even so, Onglai still didn't intend to make a move. Anyway, everything was under his control. He suddenly thought of an even more fun way to play. It was said that humans were a selfish and greedy species, and he wanted to see how selfish they could be. So, Onglai directly bypassed Zhan and the others, and spoke to the humans inside the city. You humans, ignorant and ignorant, this person is the incarnation of death in this world, and must not be allowed to live. Considering your ignorance, I will now give you a chance, kill him, and not only will you be spared from death, but you will also receive a treasure from our dragon clan. After saying these words, Onglai couldn't help but feel pleased with himself. This strategy, according to the elders of the clan, was to play with the human heart. Shouting and killing was just low-level play. Playing with the human heart was the high-end way to play. Inside the city, after listening to these words, a group of people had different expressions on their faces, which were extremely wonderful. But without exception, they all looked at Zhan on the city wall. There was only one sentence in their minds. Killing this person would not only save them, but also bring them huge benefits. If Zhan hadn't been too intimidating when he appeared, and there was a dog and a tiger next to him, they would have swarmed up and snatched the kill. After a while, suddenly someone spoke. Boss Liu, kill him quickly, and we will be saved. With the first one, there was naturally the second one, and the third one. Yes, Boss Liu. The dragon said that he is the incarnation of death and should not appear in the territory of our living people. Kill him. Everyone go together and kill him. Boss Liu, you take the lead, and we will give you the kill. Boss Liu, you said you would save us. Now it's up to you. Listening to these voices, Zhan's face remained calm, and his heart was unmoved. He had seen many such scenes in his previous life. How about it, Mr. Liu? Are you going to do it? Zhan looked at Liu Yong and asked indifferently. Liu Yong's heart seemed to be greatly stimulated at this moment, and his face was full of expressions of the collapse of belief. After hearing the question, he came back to his senses. Brother Liu, how could I possibly attack you? He directly looked at the people below, as if making a final struggle. Everyone, the words of the monsters cannot be trusted. They are dividing us. Let's fight together, and under the leadership of Brother Liu, we may not be able to defeat these monsters. As a result, as soon as he finished speaking, the dragon in the sky suddenly sneezed, and 2 flames shot straight out of its nostrils. The next second, an extremely terrifying burning sensation directly enveloped the entire city. A group of people trembled. Just one sneeze could take their lives. Fight? Fight what? At this moment, one person took advantage of the situation, directly grabbed the still under protection Xiaoyao, placed the sword on her throat, and said fiercely, Boss Liu, don't blame me. If you don't kill him, then wait to collect the body for your woman. Are you guys serious with this shit? Zhan was directly angry and summoned number 2. Number 2's figure barely stayed beside Zhan and had already arrived behind that person, silently wiping the other person's neck with a dagger. And that wasn't the end. Zhan moved his mind. Number 2's figure quickly shuttled through the crowd. Those few who had just been clamoring the most fell to the ground and died, without any chance of resistance. Do you think that only monsters can kill you? Zhan looked at the people below and said coldly, This big worm is right. I am the incarnation of death. Then I ask you, are you afraid of this big worm, or are you afraid of death? No one dared to speak. The black figure had returned to Zhan's side. The dagger in his hand was dyed blood red. He didn't know how much blood it was stained with. After deterring these stupid humans, Zhan directly took out his sword, and at the same time waved his hand. Transmuted, summoned. All the undead appeared in front of him. Zhan pointed his sword at the dragon and said domineeringly, Big worm, stop talking nonsense. I will make you a member of death today. Onglai didn't speak, but just waved his claws. The next second, the monsters that were waiting in place launched another charge. Indeed, it was almost time. If he didn't go back, the old guys in the clan would be angry. With a boom sound, the Cyclops punched the city wall. In an instant, the city wall collapsed, and the first line of defense used to defend against monsters could not last for even a second. The battle finally began. Woof, 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 woof. This big guy is mine. I'm going to eat him. Bei Lao He jumped up and directly pounced towards the Cyclops. Roar, 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 minions. Start eating. Eat hard. Roar, 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 roar. I'll eat some to replenish. Leave that earth dragon for me. Dewang was also unwilling to be outdone and directly rushed into the monster group. This guy was also very smart, and his target was directly at the elite monsters. It was a true tiger entering a flock of sheep. One bite was won, swallowing so happily. The mutated beasts he brought also closely followed the boss's footsteps and started a head-on battle with a large number of monsters. These mutated beasts were hundreds of them, and their strength was not weak. At least it was no problem to fight those ordinary elite monsters. The stronger ones could even single-handedly challenge elite-level monsters. Lu Zhan's undead were even more fearless. After several rounds of amplification, his transmuted undead were no weaker than those elite monsters in terms of attributes. That is, they didn't have the weakness of not having skills. But the undead won in being fearless and tireless, perfect war machines. Is this all you have? In the air, Onglai's didn't make a move. In fact, just killing a person, even if they were strong, he, a dragon, could easily accomplish it. The reason why he brought so many monster minions was for the sake of the word status. As the boss, there was naturally no reason to come down at the beginning. Perhaps he wouldn't need to come down at all. All the mutated beasts and undead combined, there were less than 400 or 500. And the monsters he brought, there were 3,000. A nearly tenfold difference in numbers. How could they not win? However, as soon as he finished speaking, he noticed some slight wrongness in the battlefield below. How could those mutated beasts and undead be so tough? Except for elite-level monsters, the attacks of other monsters had no effect on them? If it was just one or two powerful ones, that would be fine. But all the mutated beasts and undead were so tough. How is that possible? Lu Zhan grinned and looked at a figure hiding in the corner out of the corner of his eye. The reason why he dared to come out to fight was naturally because he had confidence, otherwise he would have run away long ago. Chapter 94, 2 points. Inside the city, Zhang Tianfu huddled in the corner near the city wall, secretly observing the battlefield outside. He was wearing rings on all 10 fingers, 2 necklaces around his neck, and bracelets on his wrists. These were all mana regeneration equipment, all bought for him by Brother Lu, with heavy investment. Although they weren't top-tier gear, collectively, they boosted his mana regeneration to an incredibly terrifying rate. All for the sake of his skill, enhanced assistance. That's right. He was currently activating what now seemed like a god-tier skill. In recent times, at Brother Lu's request, he had put all his skill points into this skill, and just recently, Brother Lu had given him another 5 skill points, forcibly pushing the skill to max level, level 10. At max level, enhanced assistance didn't change in most aspects, but the only changes were in 2 areas. The first was the effective range, which expanded to 1,000 meters. That effect alone was extremely powerful. For example, he could now include all of Lu Zhan's undead and mutated beasts into the teammate range from where he was standing. That was a total of 560 beasts. What did that mean? Previously, Lu Zhan's fortitude was only over 300 with the boost from so many undead. With this added 560 points, even Lu Zhan's lowest level skeleton soldiers were practically immortal. As for the other change, it was a side effect. Namely, the mana consumption rate. 50 points per second, terrifying. For this, Lu Zhan had spent almost all of his gold coins buying over a dozen mana regeneration items, finally allowing Zhang Tianfu's mana to remain in a relatively balanced state. Truthfully, Zhang Tianfu was also panicking when he saw the dragon and the large number of monsters. When he found out that Brother Lu wanted to fight head-on and take him with him, he almost pissed himself. Luckily, Brother Lu only asked him to hide and maintain enhanced assistance, without needing to go to the front lines. On the city wall, Brother Lu withdrew his gaze and looked at the battlefield. Zhang Tianfu was just the first element he considered for this battle. There was also a second element. Number 1. Not that Lu Zhan was belittling himself, but with his current strength, slaying a dragon, even the most ordinary dragon, was still impossible. Dragons. Not only did they possess immense destructive power, but they also had extremely terrifying defense. Those scales were like suits of armor, protecting them completely, with no weaknesses. Even if Lu Zhan stacked his fortitude to the highest level, it would be useless without attacks. He would exhaust himself to death without being able to kill the dragon. So, if he wanted to slay the dragon, he still had to rely on number one. The more they fight, the stronger they become. This was a terrifying talent with no limits. As long as the stacking was enough, not only could you slay a dragon, but you could even slay a god. Zhang Tianfu's enhanced assistance plus number ones. The more they fight, the stronger they become. That was the source of Lu Zhan's confidence in this dragon-slaying battle. At that moment, number one had been arranged to fight in the monster horde, but wasn't going all out. Instead, he was controlling his strength, always maintaining himself in a neither strong nor weak state. The dragon's intelligence was already not low. He couldn't let it discover anything unusual. As long as he was constantly in combat, he could take his time. But all of this was built on the premise that there were no accidents. The battlefield was ever-changing. Lu Zhan couldn't guarantee he would win either. He glanced at the battlefield. Bei Laohe and the Cyclops were having a great time fighting. After eating a few monsters, Dewang's electricity had also fully recovered, and it rushed towards its food, the Earth Dragon. These two guys' own strength was naturally inferior to their opponents. But with the enhancement of enhanced assistance, it was like adding a layer of golden bell cover, allowing them to face the opponents head-on without fear. Let's do this. Lu Zhan moved his mind and took out the purple dagger, Loss's Edge, and officially handed it to the black figure, number 2, beside him. The next second, number 2 had already disappeared in place, instantly appearing behind an elite-level monster. The dagger stabbed out. Silently, the elite-level monster directly fell to the ground, motionless. The skill Backstab Raid plus the 200% critical damage triggered by Loss's Edge Gust Step directly allowed number 2 to one-shot an elite-level monster. Terrifying. Wielding Loss's Edge, along with the fortitude boost from enhanced assistance, made number 2 a killer warrior on the battlefield. After killing an elite-level monster, number 2's figure flashed towards the next target. Ding! Congratulations on leveling up. With the death of the first elite monster, the system's leveling up notification finally rang in Lu Zhan's mind. Lu Zhan waved his hand, and 2 elite-level monsters who had just been killed stood up and joined the undead army. Zhang Tianfu, who was secretly observing, was also quick-witted and pulled these two into the teammate range. Lu Zhan was still standing on the city wall, adhering to the principle that he wouldn't move unless the dragon moved. But he wasn't idle either, constantly casting undead summoning. Although, due to some special reasons, the summoned creatures were basically all common-level undead, with the boost of enhanced assistance. Even common undead could act as meat shields. Even if they couldn't kill the monsters, they could still hold them back. Suddenly, a dangerous aura came, and just as Lu Zhan was about to take action, a dagger flew out of his shadow and directly hit his body. With a ding sound, the dagger hit Lu Zhan's body, but didn't even break the skin. Without turning his head, Lu Zhan thrust the sword in his hand towards the shadow at an extremely fast speed, 10 stabs per second, using his single-hand speed of more than 10 years to the extreme. Ah! From the shadow, a scream was heard, and then a pure black figure rolled out of his shadow. Shadow Demon, a special monster that could hide in the target's shadow. Lu Zhan had only heard of such monsters in his previous life. They were extremely rare. Because of their small numbers, this race couldn't even survive independently and often existed as assassins for top-tier races. He didn't expect that this dragon would also be raising a shadow demon. Without Zhang Tianfu's enhanced assistance, this attack might have really killed him. But now, Lu Zhan's fortitude had reached a terrifying 999, just 1 point away from breaking 1,000, worthy of being called an invulnerable body. This shadow demon was at most at the elite level. Thinking of killing him was simply wishful thinking. Interesting, you are more tenacious than I imagined. In the air, the dragon Angli's dragon eyes revealed a hint of heartache, but he pretended to be calm and said, "There were very few shadow demons. Even the entire dragon race only raised a few hundred. It had spent a great price to get it from the ancestors, and it had been raised from childhood as a secret weapon. It hadn't expected that this first assassination mission would fail. Too bad. This person deserved to die." Chapter 95, One-on-One. What's the matter? Can't resist and want to come down personally? Lu Zhan looked at the sky. He directly transmuted the shadow demon on the ground into an undead. This thing relied entirely on skills, so its strength after transmutation probably wouldn't be great. So this transmutation was purely mocking him. Alright, I've played enough. Onglais was a little annoyed. Originally, it thought that it was in control of the whole situation, and this trip was just for sightseeing. It wouldn't even need to do anything itself. As a result, the opponent's hundreds of undead and mutated beasts actually blocked its thousands of monster army. These things were ridiculously tough, only needing to deal with elite-level monsters. As for those below elite level, they could be completely ignored, allowing them to attack as they pleased. At that moment, it actually felt like a clown. In that case, then let it end completely. It didn't believe that these things, no matter how tough they were, could withstand its dragon's wrath. Onglais roared and opened its mouth to spew dragon fire. But then he saw Zhan flapping his wings and flying into the sky, pointing his sword at it and saying, "Big worm, dare to fight one-on-one?" The damage from this guy was too high, and Zhan wasn't sure if number 1 could withstand it. If number 1 was gone, even if he killed all the monsters below, he would lose this battle. At this time, Zhan could only stand up and stall for time for number 1. Roar! Just as he finished speaking, he heard a dragon roar. Instantly, Zhan felt a sharp pain coming from his mind. If his spirit wasn't high enough, this roar might have killed him directly. This roar was no ordinary roar, but dragon's wrath. Although Zhan wasn't killed, he couldn't help but be stunned in place. The next second, a fiery red dragon tail swept over and sent him flying. That wasn't the end. Onglais opened its dragon mouth, and a terrifying dragon fire spewed towards Zhan, instantly engulfing him. A wisp of fire came out of Anglais' nostrils. It was over. It was really boring. It thought that this kid could bring it some surprises. However, when the dragon fire disappeared, the kid didn't turn to ashes. As expected of a dragon, you're really strong. Zhan at this moment could be said to be miserable. Not only were all the clothes on his body burned to ashes, but there wasn't a single hair left. Even the sword in his hand and the blue equipment were melting. This showed how strong the dragon fire was, as expected of one of the most powerful races. But so what? As long as it didn't kill him, there was still a chance. Zhan directly took out a new sword from the storage ring. As for clothes, he simply didn't care. Then, he flapped his wings quickly and charged towards the dragon. Even if he was as strong as a dragon, releasing skills like Dragon's Roar had a cooldown. They couldn't roar all the time. Zhan had to fight during those skill gaps. Himph, tenacious rat. Although Onglais was a little surprised, it was only that. It swung its tail towards the opponent. Zhan in the air instantly stopped flapping his wings, and his body rapidly fell, dodging the dragon tail. Then he flew up again and was already below the dragon, stabbing with a sword. There was a ding sound. As expected, the sword in Zhan's hand directly broke. If he could successfully slay this dragon, the first thing Zhan would do was create blood lament. This feeling of breaking a sword with every strike was too uncomfortable. Zhan simply threw away the hilt and grabbed a dragon's scale with force. Although his strength wasn't as abnormal as his fortitude, it was still more than 300 points, worthy of being called a super strongman. With this pull, the dragon's scale loosened a little. If he pulled it a few more times, he might really be able to tear it off. However, Onglais wouldn't give him a chance. Its huge dragon claws instantly came down. Dragons were true hexagonal warriors. Don't look at their huge bodies, but their speed was not slow at all. Their movements were so fast that Zhan had to go all out to dodge them. He could only let go of the dragon's scale and flap his wings, barely dodging the claw. As a result, the next second, a dragon tail swept towards him, hitting him hard. If he was swept away, he would only be greeted by a dragon fire. At the critical moment, Zhan endured the pain and opened his arms, grabbing the dragon's tail. Onglais naturally felt its tail being grabbed and shook it frantically, wanting to throw the person down. But how could Zhan let it have its way? His arms were like iron pliers, tightly gripping the tail, not letting go. Onglais shook for a while, and when it saw that it couldn't shake him off, it directly flew towards the ground. When the distance was enough, it suddenly slammed its tail into the ground. Damn! Zhan's face changed. If he was hit, he would probably be smashed into mincemeat. But he didn't let go, instead twisting his body and flipping onto the dragon's tail. Then he ran wildly on the dragon's body towards the dragon's head. While running wildly, he couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. He was a necromancer. How could he have been reduced to hand-to-hand combat with a dragon? Roar! Onglais was completely enraged. This guy dared to step on its body and even try to climb to the head? The arrogance of the dragon race would never allow any creature to be above them. Fire Dragon Mystical Skill, Grand Dragon Fire Art activated. In an instant, Angli's entire body seemed to be burning, and the terrifying heat instantly evaporated the air, turning into a truly fire dragon. Damn! Zhan didn't expect that this guy could have such changes. The temperature of this flame was ridiculously high, and as soon as it came into contact with it, his body began to show signs of burning. He didn't dare to hesitate at all, and moved his mind. In an instant, the huge fire dragon disappeared in the air, leaving only the terrifying heat still spreading in the air. It was the skill of the Necromantic Ring, Necromantic Imprisonment. This skill was one of the trump cards he had prepared, originally intended to use at the crucial moment, but he didn't expect to use it so soon. Even if it was a dragon, it couldn't escape this Necromantic Imprisonment. This dragon was ridiculously strong, and he didn't have any information about dragons. All sorts of methods caught him off guard. It looked like it wasn't going to work. He couldn't withstand this terrifying dragon on his own. Taking this opportunity, Zhan looked at the battlefield below, made a decision in an instant, flapped his wings, and rushed towards the Earth Dragon. He had 1 minute, and he had to do something, otherwise, when the dragon came out, number 1's buffs probably wouldn't be stacked enough. In that case, then he would kill the Earth Dragon and the Cyclops first, freeing Duong and Beilao He. The 3 heroes would fight this dragon Lubu. He didn't believe they couldn't hold it back. Inside the necromantic space, Angli's fire dragon state had completely disappeared. At that moment, it was lying on the ground, not daring to move. As a top-tier race, it naturally knew much more than ordinary people or monsters. Ordinary imprisonments or spatial skills couldn't trap it at all. But just now, it didn't even have any reaction and was banished to this space. The extremely rich death aura made it extremely afraid. Could it be that the Lord of Death had personally intervened? Chapter 96. Ramit. Inside the city, a group of people looked at the battlefield, completely dumbfounded. First, the strong attack of the monster army, then the brave resistance of the undead and mutated beast squad. Immediately afterwards, it was the so-called Death Incarnate fighting the dragon one-on-one. As a result, the dragon directly disappeared into the air as they fought. This was too dramatic. Even movies wouldn't dare to film it like this, right? So much so that now, they suddenly felt that they might really win. These monsters don't seem to be very strong. Look at them. They don't do any damage to the mutated beasts. That's right. I've seen that mutated beast before. It's not that strong. I could even take it on myself. This is a bunch of paper tigers. No wonder that guy is so arrogant. He must have seen through it long ago. It seems that the dragon is just, As the group spoke, their eyes suddenly lit up. To them, monsters not only represented danger, but also experience, gold coins, equipment, and treasures. When they found that the danger wasn't that high. So many monsters, how tempting it would be. Everyone, this is our human territory. How can we allow these monsters to destroy it? That's right. Everyone pick up your weapons and drive these guys out of our home. For humanity. Charge. For humanity. For a time, a large number of people shouted slogans and rushed out of the city, killing the monsters, wanting to defend humanity. No, they wanted to get a share. As a result, as soon as they came into contact, a person who was shouting slogans was slapped by an elite monster and was instantly turned into blood mist. Then, one after another, more and more people were easily killed by the monsters. They finally realized. The monsters didn't become weaker, but were much stronger than they imagined. The large group of people screamed and tried to escape, but it was difficult to get out, and it wouldn't be so easy to hide back in. All of this was naturally seen by Zhan, who sneered in his heart. They didn't have the buff of enhanced assistance. If these people had rushed out to fight at the beginning, Zhan might have had Zhang Tianfu give them the buff. But they only came out now, wanting to pick up what's left? Wishful thinking. Lu Zhan would rather not have these few hundred points of fortitude. Anyway, the number of undead and mutated beasts was enough. Xiao Yao, be careful. On the side, Lu Yong, who was fighting, found that Xiao Yao had also rushed over and quickly rushed over to protect her. He naturally had the buff of enhanced assistance on him and was like entering an unmanned place in the monster horde, quickly arriving next to Xiao Yao. What are you doing here? Brother Yong, I'm here to help you. Xiao Yao's face was full of determination. She wanted to fight alongside her lover instead of being a dumb bird in the back. Brother Lu. Lu Yong wasn't foolish and naturally knew that the reason why he was so tough was because of Brother Lu. Lu Zhan didn't hesitate and nodded. He had a good impression of this little priest, and his storage ring had been taken from her. Zhang Tianfu, who had been secretly observing, immediately understood and instantly pulled the little priest into the teammate range. Roar, roar, roar. Kill you little trash. At this moment, De Wong roared, bit the earth dragon's neck, and then forcefully tore it, directly tearing off a large piece of meat. Boom! Under the double attack of Lu Zhan and De Wong, the earth dragon finally couldn't hold on and crashed to the ground. De Wong was no longer polite and directly opened its mouth to bite. The earth dragon meat was tough and hard, but so what? As long as it could become stronger, De Wong said it could swallow anything. Lu Zhan didn't care about it anymore and rushed to Bei Laohei's side. As a result, the next second, in the air, the terrifying pressure descended again. The 1 minute was up. De Wong, come with me, take down the big worm. Without saying anything, Lu Zhan flapped his wings and took off again, killing Onglais, who had just appeared. Roar, roar, roar. Wait for me to take another bite. I'll be right there. De Wong roared as he ate. Hurry up, if you don't come, you'll be collecting the body for your good friend. Lu Zhan roared. This dragon was really fierce, and he couldn't withstand it alone. The moment he finished speaking, a lightning bolt swept past him and rushed towards the dragon. With a boom sound, Onglais, who was still immersed in the joy of escaping, felt pain in its stomach. De Wong was also ridiculously thick-headed and directly rammed into it. Little bugs, you're courting death. Onglais saw De Wong wrapped in lightning balls and was furious. As a result, the next second, De Wong directly bit its stomach. Roar, roar, roar. Damn, what is this thing? So hard. De Wong cried out. Its teeth were about to break. Just as it finished calling out, a dragon tail swept towards it. With a boom sound, the lightning ball was directly swept away. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Zhan had climbed onto the dragon's body again. He didn't believe that this guy could turn into a fire dragon again so quickly. Ah, little bugs. I'm going to eat you. Onglais had completely lost its temper. It had reacted now. It had been banished to that death space by this guy. This made it angry. It had actually been afraid. This was simply a disgrace to the dragon race. Roar, roar, roar. Big worm. I'm the one who's going to eat you. The flying lightning ball directly stopped in midair and then instantly returned, rushing towards the dragon again. With a boom sound, Onglais was preparing to grab the little bug on its back when it felt another pain in its stomach. The lightning ball had hit it again. A woo, a woo, a woo. Onglais was going crazy. These two guys, one on top and one on bottom, actually gave it pain in both areas. That wasn't the end. He heard Lu Zhan on his back suddenly shout, De Wong, good brother. Ram its little brother. Roar, roar, roar. Huh, how did you know it was a male worm? A suspicious voice came from the lightning ball, but it still quickly flew to the bottom of the dragon. It really want to find it. I don't care if it's brother or sister. Just ram it. Lu Zhan continued to roar, while his hands grabbed a dragon scale and tore it hard. With a tear sound, only a little of the dragon scale was torn off, and Lu Zhan flapped his wings and flew up, dodging the dragon tail. Suddenly, there were the mad roars of a big tiger. Roar, roar, roar. Good brother Lu Zhan. Damn, 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 damn. Roar, 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 roar. You guessed right. It really is a little brother, but it's too damn thick. Who can handle this? The roar De Wong wasn't polite either and rammed the whole lightning ball into that big pillar. Onglais trembled violently and instantly felt something paralyzed. Roar. Onglais couldn't bear it anymore, and at the same time that the dragon roar skill was cooled down, it couldn't wait to activate it. It had to crush these two little bugs. Chapter 97. Finishing Touches, Escape. Zhan only felt a stabbing pain in his mind, his expression faltering once more. This dragon's roar was indeed freakish. He probably couldn't have withstood it without a spirit stat of over 200. However, this time, Zhan had learned from experience and forcibly gripped a dragon's scale the moment the dragon opened its mouth. The next second, the dragon's tail swung, wanting to send Zhan flying, but it only pulled away half the dragon's scale. Zhan was still clinging to the dragon's scale. When Onglai's wanted to swing a second time, Zhan's mind had already cleared up. He slid down the dragon's back and flew to the dragon's belly. As for Dewang, it had also been seeing stars from the dragon's roar and was now being gripped tightly by the dragon's claws. Roar, roar, roar. Good brother Zhan, come and save me. Dewang had unleashed maximum power, but even 100,000 volts didn't cause the dragon claws to loosen. On the contrary, they were tightening more and more. If this continued, it might really be crushed to a pulp. However, Zhan couldn't save it. At the moment, a dragon tail and another claw were attacking him crazily. Other than dodging, he had no time for anything else. However, him not being able to save it didn't mean that others couldn't. On the ground, Number 2 had been constantly attacking the Cyclops under Zhan's orders. Working together with Bei Lao He, they had finally managed to take down the Cyclops. Bei Lao He didn't hesitate. Zhan had said that after killing the guy, it should head to the sky to take down the bug. Anyway, the food was here and wouldn't disappear. After taking a bite without stopping, Bei Lao He was already surrounded by lightning and transformed into a lightning ball, rushing straight into the sky. With a boom sound, Onglai's was going crazy. Why was there another one coming? However, it had now made up its mind to squeeze the tiger that had bullied its little buddy to death. No matter how the little dog rammed it, it just wouldn't loosen its claws. Lao He, bite its little buddy. Seeing that Dewang was about to be crushed to death, Zhan quickly reminded him in the midst of his busy dodging. Woof woof woof, damn, I don't like that stuff. Bei Lao He quickly refused. This was no good, no good. Hurry up, don't dawdle, or I'll starve you for 3 days and 3 nights. Zhan directly threatened. This was a deadly threat to Bei Lao He. It immediately forgot everything and rammed into that big pillar. At the same time, it opened its mouth and took a bite. Oh woo! Onglai screamed. How could it still hold its claws tightly? Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dewang also quickly escaped. Roar, 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 little brother. How did that thing taste? Woof, woof, woof. I'm warning you. Don't call me little brother. I saved you just now. Woof, woof, woof. As for the taste, all I can say is it's fishy. Roar, roar, roar. Really? Luckily I didn't bite. Damn, you two. Can you not discuss such disgusting things? Zhan couldn't listen anymore. Woof, woof, woof. Didn't you tell me to bite it? Bei Lao He immediately protested. You 3. Enough. Onglai's went completely insane, screaming madly, completely lacking the dragon race's arrogance and majesty, only with exasperation and hysteria. In the time that followed, the dragon and 1 person, 1 dog, and 1 tiger directly fell into a war of attrition. As the battle continued, Angli's heart became more and more agitated, to the point of frustration. It had no way to solve this. Although these 3 guys couldn't kill it, even if they fought for 3 days and 3 nights, it couldn't catch these 3 guys either, and could only watch itself being humiliated by them. These 3 guys were like 3 fleas, jumping up and down on its body. Its highest damage dragon fire couldn't attack these 3 guys at all. The most terrifying thing was that these 3 guys attacked its little buddy from time to time. For a time, Angli's huge dragon eyes became wet. That's right, it was just a common level dragon. According to the dragon race's age, it was still underage, it was still a child. Why did it have to endure all this here? It was beginning to want to escape home. It missed its mommy. Zhan also noticed the abnormality of this guy, and quickly roared. Haha, is this the dragon race? It's just so. He had finally fought to this point, and couldn't let the dragon run away. He quickly provoked it. This trick worked. Angli's internal dragon race dignity was awakened again, and it had to kill these 3 guys. The dragon frantically twisted its body, reorganized its forces, and attacked the 3 guys again. Lu Zhan saw this and looked at the ground. Nearly a third of the monsters had already been killed, most of them by those mutated beasts. After these guys had the buff of enhanced assistance, they were truly terrifying. They killed as they ate. They became stronger after eating the monsters. They continued to kill and continued to kill. They were purely becoming more and more courageous as they fought. This wave had truly become the biggest winner, and the strength of almost every mutated beast had greatly increased. Of course, their strengthening also had an upper limit. No matter how much they ate, they couldn't catch up with Dawang. This was determined by their genetic talent. Lu Zhan's undead, on the other hand, were mostly acting as meat shields. Their damage wasn't very high. The main output was concentrated on number 2, and the undead transmuted from a few elite monsters. So even though so many monsters had died, Lu Zhan hadn't leveled up yet. Lu Zhan looked at number 1 state again. It should be about time, and it could finish up. His mind moved. The next second, number 1, who had been half-assing the whole time, suddenly erupted, cutting down with an axe. With the explosion damage, it instantly killed a dozen monsters. Immediately afterwards, number 1 transformed into a terrifying Grim Reaper, directly starting to harvest all the monsters on the battlefield. This was a true harvest. Whether it was those powerful race monsters or what elite monsters, not a single one could withstand its axe. The more they fight, the stronger they become. Buff had been stacked to an unprecedented height. In just 1 minute, the sound of leveling up rang in Lu Zhan's mind. Level 17. Leveling up 2 levels in a short period of time. He knew that he was the undisputed number 1 on the leaderboard. And this was not the end. There were still nearly 1,000 monsters on the ground, and most importantly, there was such a big dragon. He would kill them all. He could level up at least 1 more level. In the air, Onglais had finally discovered something was wrong. It had been obsessed with killing 3 little fleas and hadn't paid attention to the battlefield below. Looking at it now, he found that so many had died. Of course, even if all the monsters below died, it wouldn't feel sorry. To the dragon race, lower races were all slaves. But this made it feel a sense of crisis. No matter how much the 3 fleas jumped and humiliated it, it would only make it angry and wronged. But it knew that its life would at least not be in any danger. But at this moment, it was afraid that it would die here. At the moment, Onglais no longer cared about any dragon race dignity. It was going to escape. Chapter 98, Dragon Slaying. Wanna leave? It's too late. Brother Dawang Laohe, we retreat. Lu Zhan roared. Next, he would leave it to number 1 to perform. If this dragon desperately resisted, it might pull them down with it in a mutual destruction. It was best to leave first. Anyway, their output wouldn't do any damage to this dragon. On the ground, a rocket shot into the sky, and it was number 1. Although it couldn't fly, with the blessing of extremely high agility, jumping 1,000 meters was not a problem. Roar! Onglais completely panicked. That aura made it feel terrified. At the moment, it didn't care about anything and flew away with all its strength. Seeing that the guy was about to fly far away, Lu Zhan went crazy. Number 1, Berserk, take it down. Lu Zhan didn't know if he could take down the dragon in 1 minute, but he had to try. In an instant, number 1, who was still in the air, accelerated again. With a swoosh sound, it was already above the dragon. Then, it swung its axe down. With a boom sound, the terrifying explosion shook the sky. In an instant, a large amount of blood fell from the sky, like rain. Roar! Onglais screamed. It hurt. It felt pain that it had never felt before. At this moment, it no longer had any psychological resistance. From the initial domineering and pressure in all directions to the current embarrassment and almost kneeling down to beg for mercy, the transformation of Anglai's mental journey was a complete reversal. At this moment, there were only 4 words in its heart. Mommy, save me. Woof 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 woof. Big tiger, look, this is my boss. How strong. If you are arrogant again, he will kill you with 1 axe. Seeing this scene, Bei Laohe howled with excitement. Dawang was also a little dumbfounded. That thing was really fierce. Was it really this silly dog's boss? Did he have to speak a little quieter in the future? Damn, what are you two still standing there for? Hurry up and drink. This is dragon blood. Seeing these 2 guys still discussing, Zhan quickly reminded the Dewang and Bei Lao He next to him. This thing was a great tonic for mutated beasts. He would definitely transmute the dragon later and could only let them drink some blood. Roar, roar, roar. Can this thing be drunk? Dewang hesitated, but it saw Bei Lao He's lightning ball had rushed over. After following Zhan for so long, Bei Lao He still trusted the boss's boss. Seeing the actions of this black dog, Dewang dared not hesitate any longer. If it was any later, it would be gone. These two guys flew directly to the bottom of the dragon and opened their mouths. As a result, as soon as they received the first mouthful of blood, they howled madly. At the same time, the lightning around them instantly became stronger and bigger. Dragon blood was so delicious. In the sky, Number 1 had already drawn out its axe, and then it jumped directly onto the dragon's body, swinging the axe crazily. The sword even appeared as afterimages. More and more blood was falling from the sky. Dewang and Bei Lao He were frantically catching it below. They couldn't catch it all. Roar, 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 roar. What are you guys doing? Come here and catch the blood and drink. Dewang was going crazy. It was a waste, such a waste. Especially seeing its minions still killing garbage monsters, it was even more anxious and roared directly. What was good about garbage monsters? They had to come and eat the dragon blood. Onglai's had been completely despaired. It felt its life draining rapidly. As a dragon, its blood was thick as hell. But it couldn't withstand that guy cutting so crazily. The output was too high. What to do? I'm going to die. Mommy. No. I am the dragon race. The strongest in the world. How can I be killed? Mommy said. Even if we dragons die, we can't be killed like this. Task. Right. It was out here to carry out a task. To kill that death incarnation. Then, it would use its own life to complete this task. To maintain the dragon race's last dignity. Thinking of this, Angli's heart instantly calmed down, and the dragon race's dignity returned to its body. It slowly looked at Zhan, who was still flapping his wings. Self-destruction. How powerful the dragon race's self-destruction was, even it couldn't imagine. But it could definitely kill that guy. However, for safety's sake, it should get a little closer to that guy. Far away. Zhan was watching Number 1's dragon-slaying performance and suddenly felt a throb in his heart, instantly feeling uneasy. Seeing the dragon's gaze and its determination to fly towards him, his heart suddenly cried out. Without any hesitation, he directly gave Number 1 an order. Death sigh, quickly. Onglai's felt that the distance was almost the same and was about to inject all the energy into its dragon heart to start the self-destruction. The next second, an extremely strange voice rang in its ear. Mommy, Xiaoxi is so scared. In an instant, immense fear once again shrouded Angli's heart, and the energy that had just gathered dissipated directly. You two, stop catching it, come on together, kill it. Zhan roared at Dewang and Bei Lao He, who were still catching the blood. At the same time, he also rushed up. At this time, even a little output was output. If they couldn't kill the dragon, it would be completely over. The two mutated beasts naturally heard the urgency in Zhan's voice. Without any hesitation, 2 lightning balls rushed towards the dragon's head. Boom, boom, boom. On the dragon's body, explosions continued to sound. Number 1 had pushed its speed to the limit, and the damage from the explosions was also constantly being triggered. The 2 lightning balls directly increased the electricity to the maximum and constantly crashed into the dragon's head. As for Zhan, he was punching and kicking. Without a good sword, it was better to use brute force for higher damage. Oh woo! All of you go to hell. After a moment, Onglai's finally came to its senses. Under the intersection of anger, despair, regret, and fear, it began to gather energy again. Son of a bitch, give it your all. Zhan roared. However, without him saying, Dewang and Bei Lao He had also sensed the earth-shattering energy and were using all their strength, and lightning was running wild on their bodies. Oh whoa, go to hell. Angli's voice suddenly stopped abruptly. Then the huge body fell straight down. In its huge dragon eyes was full of unwillingness, but it could no longer close them. Boom. After a loud noise, it stirred up dust all over the sky. Woof, woof, woof. I was scared to death. Is this guy dead? Bei Lao He called out. Dead. Lu Zhan took a deep breath and said slowly. Just now, the system's voice sounded continuously in his mind. Ding, congratulations. Your level has increased by 2 levels. Ding, congratulations. You have obtained 500,000 gold coins. Ding, congratulations. You are the first to kill a dragon, and you have obtained the title Dragon Slayer. Ding, you have obtained the dragon's curse, and you will be chased endlessly by the dragon race. At the same time, dragon attribute hidden class users will obtain all of you when you kill you. Chapter 99. Let There Be Light. As expected of a dragon, the experience alone directly caused Lu Zhan to level up twice. Without even looking, he knew that the forums must already be a mess. A mysterious person had directly parachuted into the top spot on the level rankings, a full 2 levels higher than the second place, Huang Shengren. Besides that, a whole 500,000 gold coins. Lu Zhan could say without humility, if there was a gold coin ranking, he would definitely be number 1 there too. As for the curses and such, Lu Zhan simply ignored them. Was there any need to care? It didn't matter. Like lice, the more you have, the less they itch. The more debts you have, the less you worry. With the death of the dragon, the remaining monsters on the ground began to scatter and flee. This wave was simply them being forcibly summoned by Onglais to boost their presence and show off. Now that the boss was dead, they wouldn't stay here and wait to die. Lu Zhan didn't let the undead chase them. It was a waste of time. As for the mutated beasts, he naturally couldn't control them. Let them chase if they wanted. Awesome! Lu Zhan, still flying in the sky, couldn't help but shout. The anger in his heart was released at that moment. Dragon slaying. This feat, even in his previous life, had only been accomplished by a select few. Just then, number 1's body suddenly fell rapidly towards the ground. It didn't have the ability to fly. Lu Zhan quickly took it back into the undead space. Berserk had ended, and number 1's stats were halved. If it fell from such a height, it was really at risk of being smashed to pieces. If number 1 was gone, killing 10 dragons wouldn't be able to make up for the loss. Then, Lu Zhan flapped his wings and flew towards the ground. Next was the exciting moment. A dragon. What good stuff would it drop? When he reached the ground, seeing the huge dragon corpse, Lu Zhan still felt incomparably excited. He had actually slain a dragon. However, soon, Lu Zhan was somewhat disappointed. On the dragon's corpse, there were only 3 orbs. Dragon meat, top-tier ingredient. Dragon scale, top-tier equipment material. Dragon blood, upon consumption, temporarily increases all stats by 50% for 5 minutes. Although there were few items, all 3 were top-tier. Especially the bottle of dragon blood. Increasing all stats by 50% without any side effects was simply outrageous. It was just a little low in quantity. Such a small bottle would probably be gone in 10 gulps. Putting the 3 items into the undead space, Lu Zhan's disappointment gradually dissipated. This was normal. This dragon was clearly of ordinary level. And ordinary levels, regardless of race, had an extremely low drop rate. Like those low-level ordinary monsters, killing them resulted in nothing. Besides, the 3 items dropped by this dragon could already be considered top tier, and there was nothing to be disappointed about. Brother Lu, we really won. Lu Yong said with excitement and agitation, trembling. This was a battle that he had originally thought he would definitely die in. He hadn't expected that not only did they not die, but they had driven away all the monsters and even killed a dragon. The look in his eyes when he looked at Lu Zhan was no longer just awe, but with admiration. Like he was looking at a god. Dragons in his understanding were mythical creatures. So Lu Zhan, who could slay dragons, wasn't he a god? Not far away, Zhang Tianfu also ran over excitedly. Brother Lu, too strong. Lu Zhan suddenly looked at the two and said, I am indeed the incarnation of death. Are you not afraid? Afraid of what? The two said in unison without hesitation. Then what if one day, I will turn this world into a world of death? Lu Zhan said, Then can you let me be a death general? Zhang Tianfu smiled. In the world of death, there should still be living people, right? Lu Yong hesitated. He himself didn't care, but he couldn't drag Xiaoya to die with him. Haha, just kidding with you guys. I'm not that powerful. Lu Zhan laughed. He moved his mind. Not far away. A person had been instantly killed by number 2. At this time, on the battlefield, There were not only a large number of corpses, but also many orbs on the monster corpses, like an undisguised treasure, nakedly displayed in front of the still surviving people in the city. Sure enough, one couldn't resist and wanted to secretly take something. Zhan was very stingy. His things, without his permission, even if it was just a strengthening stone, whoever dared to take it would die. Seeing this scene, it immediately made those restless people shrink back. Zhan sneered and was about to say something when his expression suddenly changed, and then a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. They were coming. They had finally come. Let them all come together. Let him see how much malice this world could have towards him. The next second, an extremely dignified voice suddenly sounded in the sky above. The Lord said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In an instant, a white light burst open in the sky, and holy light illuminated the earth. Those humans who were illuminated made comfortable sounds. Their wounds were healing quickly, and their diseases were being treated quickly. However, in contrast, it was Zhan's undead. White smoke began to rise from their bodies, as if they were melting. Zhan frowned. A holy type class user? With such a large range and power, this class was probably not weak. The most terrifying thing was that, at this time, he couldn't take those undead back into the undead space. He moved his mind and wanted to let those undead escape the holy light. However, it was useless. Those undead seemed to be fixed there, unmoving. Only number 2, the elite level 1, could barely move and instantly flashed back to Zhan's side. Zhan directly used his body to block the holy light and finally took number 2 back into the space. As for Zhan himself, although he also felt disgusted and uncomfortable with this holy light, it was okay and didn't do any damage. After all, he was, in general, still a human. What's going on? Zhang Tianfu looked incredulously. Continue to activate enhanced assistance. The second great battle is about to begin. Zhan said with a solemn expression. The power of the newcomer far exceeded his imagination. That's right. The information about him on the forum was all posted by him. Since so many people wanted to kill him, then he would make a big fuss. He would simply attract all those people over and then take them all in one fell swoop. This was Zhan's biggest purpose in returning to Donghai. Finding Dawang and getting revenge was just a matter of convenience. As for this monster siege, it was an accident and not in his plans. Originally, in his expectations, the most powerful among the newcomers would be no more than the Elf Queen and the Night Emperor, the 2 future human emperors. Because in his memory, there were no holy type hidden class experts in his previous life. Now it seemed, it wasn't that there weren't any, but that they were hidden. At this time, he couldn't help but think of the so-called Heavenly God group. Could it be that the backing of this group was the holy type expert? While thinking, all of his undead were purified in the holy light without a trace. Even the tiger demon undead couldn't avoid it. In an instant, his stats began to plummet to the bottom. Chapter 100. All sorts of people. Zhan, seeing that you are also human, surrender, and you can suffer less flesh and skin pain. The holy light dissipated, and a figure appeared in midair. This guy was snow white all over, tall and slender, with a sacred face, and it was difficult to tell whether it was male or female for a time. Most peculiar was, behind him, there was actually a pair of 4-winged wings. That's right. They were growing, unlike Zhan's thing, which was a prop. Damn, good brother. What is your class? Birdman? Zhan said in shock, blurting out. This guy was clearly a human class user. He had never seen, let alone heard of, this class. Seeing the shock on Zhan's face, the Birdman's face immediately revealed a proud expression. This guy looked not old, just the age of vanity. Otherwise, this appearance couldn't be so fancy. He opened his mouth and only spit out 4 words. Holy light angel. Angel, Zhan exclaimed in his heart. It seemed that he in his previous life was really ignorant. He didn't even know there was this class. He was about to say something when he suddenly felt an extremely dangerous aura rapidly approaching. The next second, a cloud of black mist rapidly approached. The Night Emperor was coming. Zhan moved his heart and was preparing to hide behind Zhang Tianfu. Now that he didn't have the undead blessing, his physique was not good. Zhang Tianfu was more resistant to beatings. At the same time, He was preparing to cast the group transmutation technique to replenish the undead, and then let Zhang Tianfu join the enhanced assistance so his physique could soar instantly. As a result, the angel in the sky directly took action. The target was not Lu Zhan, but the cloud of black mist. He pulled out a pure white lightsaber from behind and waved it towards the cloud of black mist. In an instant, a transparent light shield appeared, surrounding the black mist tightly. No matter how it rushed left and right, it couldn't rush out. What do you mean? In the black mist, Yulong said angrily. It was so close. He was so close to avenging his brother. But he didn't expect to be disrupted by a third person. This guy's head is mine. You can't kill him. In the sky, the holy light angel Chu Ning said with a cold snort. He had run from so far away for what? Wasn't it to kill this Lu Zhan? If he was killed by someone else, it would be a wasted trip. Thinking of this, a greedy look flashed in Chu Ning's eyes. The mysterious powerhouse who was #1 on the level list was most likely this Lu Zhan. The dragon corpse was solid evidence. He was now at level 15. If he could kill Lu Zhan, the experience would probably allow him to directly reach level 20. At level 20, perhaps he could impact the 3-turn 6-winged angel. The Holy Light Angel class was very powerful and powerful in all aspects. But that was all after 3 turns. Before 3 turns, the Holy Light Angel class was more inclined to support and control. For example, the big move he had just used, Holy Light Illuminate. It was actually a powerful auxiliary skill. The reason why it could purify the undead was only because holiness was the nemesis of the undead. Support-type skills used on the undead were a killing skill. After turning into a 6-winged angel after 3 turns, there would be many powerful attack skills. These were all internal materials of the Heavenly God group. That's right. The moment he became a Holy Light Angel, he had inexplicably received an invitation from the Heavenly God group. Do you think you can kill him alone? Inside the light shield, the black mist had dissipated, revealing Yilong's figure. He looked at Lu Zhan with extremely hateful eyes, and then looked coldly at the angel in the sky and said angrily. This light shield was outrageously tough. He couldn't break it for a while. Why not? A necromancer without the undead. What use is he? Chu Ning said confidently. Then he held the lightsaber, flapped his wings, and killed Lu Zhan. Before 3 turns, his means of attack was close combat. As a result, the next second, an arrow shot straight from a distance. The target was also not Lu Zhan, but Chu Ning. Chu Ning instantly judged that this arrow was unusual. He didn't dare to continue attacking and quickly used his wings to block it. With a ding sound, the arrow shot into the wings, causing Chu Ning a burst of dizziness. He almost fell from the sky. Luckily, he stabilized himself and didn't make a fool of himself. Who is it? Chu Ning said with an angry face and looked at the direction the arrow had come from. In the sky not far away, an extremely cold and beautiful woman with a face like frost, holding a bow and arrow. Behind her, a pair of green wings were also flapping. Lu Zhan felt a little nauseous. How come now everyone had wings? He thought he was the only one who could fly. Coming was naturally an old acquaintance. The future elf queen, Shun Jalua. His head is mine. You can't take it. Shun Jalua aimed the bow at Chu Ning and said coldly, Good guy. Another one Changren To. He was purely a popular item. Lu Zhan simply sat on the ground and said loudly, Who else is coming? Come out. Or do you want to fight first? Whoever wins gets to kill me? On the ground, the light wall that trapped Yilong had disappeared. He disappeared directly on the spot. With the current situation, it was impossible to force a kill. He could only look for an opportunity again. Moreover, there would be more opportunities when his brothers arrived later. Himph, what are you? In the sky, Chu Ning looked at the bow-holding woman and said angrily. Although he had no attacking methods, his defense was top-notch. For wings could be called invulnerable, so he had nothing to be afraid of. She is the elf queen. You birdman, what are you? Why don't you kneel down to me? At this moment, a terrifying aura came from far and near, arriving instantly. His entire body was exploding with muscles. There were bursts of dragon roars when he spoke. It was Dragon Heavenly King, Zhang Long. However, Zhang Long, who was at the scene, suddenly paused and looked at Lu Zhan with disbelief. You guy, how did you become a dragon-cursed one again? In the sky, Shunjialua, who heard this, also frowned slightly. Uncle Zhang, what do you mean? Miss, I just received a system prompt. Dragon curse is similar to your elf curse. Zhang Long said, somewhat puzzled. In this way, he killed that dragon. Shunjialua quickly saw the dragon corpse and looked shocked. This guy is interesting. He is both an elf and a dragon. That birdman is probably also coming for him. What is the curse? Zhang Long said in shock. This is to be an enemy of the world. But he can slay dragons. His strength is indeed terrifying. Haha, Elf Queen? This stinky woman? Damn, you laughed me to death. Chuning laughed directly. Lu Zhan was also a little speechless. He didn't expect that Shunjialua would make the name of Elf Queen so early. It's a bit lively. Everyone, do you mind if I join the fun? Just then, another voice sounded. Immediately afterwards, a cloud of dust flew, one person and one ride galloped. The most eye-catching thing was, he was riding not a horse, but a unicorn. Chapter 101. Hero. Honkai, I didn't expect you to be here too. Chu Ning narrowed his eyes, a sense of danger washing over him as he looked at the newcomer. Although he was part of the celestial god group, he knew very little about it. He didn't even know how many people were in the organization, but he had crossed paths with this person before. The Holy Knight, Honkai. Chu Ning, what's up? Trying to hog all the glory for yourself? Honkai had a silver two-handed greatsword strapped to his back and was clad in a full set of pure white armor that screamed quality. The moment he arrived, Honkai spotted the dragon's corpse and his eyes lit up. Well, you slayed a dragon. So, you're the one who just rocketed to the top of the level ranking? Level 18. Huh? Ha ha ha. Killing you will level me up to at least 20. This trip was worth it, ha ha. Heh, think you've got this in the bag? See over there? Calls herself the Elf Queen. Intimidated? Chu Ning gestured toward Shunjialua in the distance. Let's work together, Honkai. We're practically on the same side anyway. Elf Queen? This little thing? Honkai said with a flirtatious grin. I'd rather take her home to warm my bed. The words were barely out of his mouth when an arrow shot out of Shunjialua's bow, reaching Honkai's face in the blink of an eye. Honkai's expression shifted. He couldn't dodge. In the nick of time, he could only raise an arm to protect his face. A sharp clang resounded. The arrow struck the armor on his arm, and Honkai felt an immense force slam into him. Luckily, his armor was extremely durable. Otherwise, that arrow could have pierced right through his arm and hit him square in the face. Interesting. She's definitely strong. Honkai shook his arm, which throbbed with pain. But he wasn't intimidated. Archers were ranged. Fighters, after all. He was confident that if he could just get close, he could beat this woman until she didn't know who her mother was. There won't be a next time. And if there is, it's war till death, Shunjialua said coldly. So many people. Wow, where's the cursed one? Let me get a look at him. Holy crap, what's that? A birdman. There's a class like that? I've learned something new today. Dragon. Look, it really is a dragon. Holy crap, who killed it? So brutal. Who's that woman? Green wings? Not a bad color. I know that woman. She's called the Elf Queen or something. Seems to have a big organization backing her. So, is everyone here for the cursed one? Haha, not me. I'm just here to watch the show. After all, this is probably the most exciting thing that's happened since the apocalypse began. True. Soon, more and more people arrived. They looked relaxed, without the typical tension of the apocalypse. All of them seemed confident and had some degree of skill. The weak were worrying about just surviving. They wouldn't have time for this. Among the crowd, there were quite a few elves and holy-type characters hiding as well. Identifying these hidden classes was easy. Elves had elven ears, while holy class characters were often clad in white, looking like religious fanatics. Of course, there were others who concealed their identity. Below Shunjialua, dozens of people had gathered, their expressions cold and disciplined, a stark contrast to the surrounding hubbub. In ancient times, these people would be called Shin family retainers. All right, what's the plan? How do we kill this guy? Who gets the kill? A burly man strode out of the crowd, speaking in a booming voice. He wore a suit of fiery red armor, and his long elven ears revealed that he was an elf-class character. Elves are renowned for their archers and mages, but their warrior classes weren't weak, either. Elf warriors could infuse attributes into their combat, making them incredibly powerful. This man, for example, was an elf fire attribute warrior. However, before his words could finish, an arrow suddenly shot out of the air. At the same time, other magical skills were unleashed. The target were all aimed for the empty space in front of Zhan. With a boom, the attack seemed to hit nothing, but a scream rang out. A figure materialized from the air, dying instantly. This was an elf assassin who'd probably wanted to take advantage of the chaos and kill the target. He'd underestimated all these powerful people here. Seeing this, the crowd changed their expression. The situation was clear now. Anyone who made the first move would become the target of everyone. There was only one bounty reward for killing Zhan, and everyone wanted it. No one wanted to do someone else's work for them. Everyone, this person has a grudge with my Shin family. Give us some face, how about it? Afterwards, you can be friends of the Shin family. Zhang Long stepped forward and said in a loud voice. His voice sounded like a dragon's roar, causing the people there to feel fear and discomfort. The people around certainly felt dread. The Shin family was the most powerful group here. Everyone else had come in small groups, but the Shin family had brought a small army. Of course, not everyone agreed. The Holy Knight Han Kai sneered, "Shin family? If I remember correctly, you were called the number 1 family in Jiangnan before the apocalypse." But that was before the apocalypse. Who the hell cares about your Shin family now? Stop talking nonsense. I say, let's all go at him together. May the best man win. Whoever can kill him gets the reward. That's right. May the best man win. Haha, so who wants to go first? Should I give you big shots a head start? Look at that cursed guy. He's already given up, hasn't he? He hasn't moved at all. So cowardly. If you ask me, we're all humans. We should unite and fight the monsters together. Even if we want to compete, we shouldn't fight. We should duel with words. Then how do you suggest we have a word duel? Simple. Rock, paper, scissors. Whoever wins in the end gets the kill. Get the hell out of here. The people who were previously suppressed by the Shin family started getting excited again with Han Kai's comment. And in the center of it all, Zhan was sitting on the ground, propping his chin, listening with great interest. So, Shin Jialuo's family was that awesome, the number 1 family in Jiangnan. And just now, that elf assassin was killed, and the killer didn't get cursed, but the death definitely targeted him, and he's been a target from the start. Thinking of this, Zhan looked to the side and asked, "So many people want to kill me, and they're all ridiculously strong. What are you guys planning to do?" "Bro Lu, don't worry. I'm always your support." Zhang Tianfu patted his chest. Even though he was scared, he trusted Zhan even more. He was a man who could create miracles. Lu Yong frowned, then suddenly said loudly, "Everyone, Bro Lu just killed a large number of monsters and saved a city of people. He's a human hero. Why do you want to kill him?" Chapter 102, Madness. For a moment, there was complete silence. Everyone looked at Lu Yong as if he were an idiot. A hero? Haha, you're killing me. Is this guy a white knight or something? A male white knight? That's rare. So, looks like if we want to kill the target, we have to kill the people around him first? A chorus of laughter erupted. Talking about heroism at this time? What a joke. Lu Yong's face flushed red, then pale. His beliefs had already started to crack earlier, and at this moment, they broke. "Bro Lu, they don't understand you. I understand you." Fortunately, at this time, Xiao Yao grabbed his hand, finally mending the crack. Zhan stood up, patted Lu Yong on the shoulder, and said with a smile, "You want to know why? I'll tell you why. First, my level is as high as 18, ranking first in the world. Anyone, even if they're only level 1, can reach the top by killing me. Is that reason enough?" Hearing this, everyone's breathing became rapid. Level didn't represent absolute strength, but the title of first on the level ranking was extremely attractive. Huang Shengren's prestige was partly because he was on top for so long. The holy and elf class characters looked eager to give it a try. The other powerhouses grumbled that they couldn't reach the top. They wouldn't stand by and watch someone else get it. Zhan glanced around and continued, "Second, it's the gold coins. Wait, let me check. I have 613,234 gold coins. Over 600,000, everyone. You don't have that much if you add all the gold coins that you have together, right? Haha. 600,000. At this moment, some people couldn't help but pick up their weapons, ready to use their skills. They looked at their few hundred gold coins, then at someone else's hundreds of thousands. What a rich guy. Seeing their movements, Zhan quickly stopped them. Everyone, hold on, there's more. Next, let me introduce my equipment. I have 2 pieces of purple equipment. Purple equipment. Many of you probably haven't even heard of it, right? I bet all of you combined don't have more than 10 pieces of purple equipment. And I have 2 of them. Their attributes are top-notch. Besides that, I also have a blueprint for a red equipment. The materials are almost ready. Red equipment. I am confident that not one of you have that equipment. As for the other equipment, I'm too lazy to mention it. Anything I take is definitely top-notch. Kill me, and you can have it all. With each thing Zhan said, the breathing of the people in the crowd grew heavier. He was right. Most of them had never seen purple equipment, let alone owned it. Even Shan Jialua's face showed a hint of eagerness. She had a piece of purple equipment, so she knew how powerful its attributes were. Fourth, do you see this ring? Zhan raised his hand. This thing is called a storage ring. That's right, it's what you think it is. He then demonstrated it, conjuring a sword out of thin air. Look at you, carrying all those bags. Where's the powerhouse vibe? What's this? You need to bring a bag to fight? How low is that? Storage ring. It's the must-have artifact for traveling and adventuring. How about it? Are you tempted? Kill me, and you can have it. All eyes were now focused on Zhan's finger. Storage ring. Those things only appeared in those cultivation novels. Feeling the weight of their bags, their eyes became even more greedy. Besides these, I have a lot of props. This wing. See it? You see these birdmen showing off? Kill me, and you can get wings too, and show off. And this dragon blood. After drinking it, it increases all attributes by 50%. Is that powerful enough? A magical artifact that can reverse the situation of the battlefield. This, Shadow Cloak. After putting it on, you can become invisible. Even if you're a mage, you can be invisible. Think about it. An invisible mage. How cool is that? As for skill points or something, I won't mention it. I have 20 or 30 of them. And some other trash that I don't care about, but I think you guys will want it. In conclusion, you can get so many benefits by killing me. Haha, Lu Yong. So, do you understand why they want to kill me now? However, can all this trash actually kill me? Zhan laughed wildly. Arrogant, domineering, ignoring everything. As the saying goes, if you wish to destroy him, first make him mad. That's why he says these things. He wants to drive these people crazy. Come on, let him see. To what extent the world treats him badly. Too bad. The teleportation array hasn't been invented yet. The ones coming here are from the surrounding cities. Those too far don't have time to get here. To Zhan, these people are not enough to be challenged. If the strong from all over the world were to gather because of him, that would be a challenge worthy of him. So arrogant. I like it. I'm almost reluctant to kill you. Han Kai said in response, his eyes full of greed and murderous intent. The things that Zhan said had filled him with infinite desire. Not far away, Shen Jialua said quietly, Uncle Zhang, have your men clear the area? Since these people don't know what's good for them and want to snatch from her, what about killing them all? She was determined to kill Zhan, not just for the curse reward, but also to get revenge. Yes, Mississippi, Zhang Long replied, about to command his men to attack. However, in the next second, several roars suddenly rang out from the periphery. Woof, 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 haha, big kitty, I ate 15, how about that? Pretty good. Roar, 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 little bro, not bad, but I ate 16, haha, one more than you. Woof, woof, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Get lost. I don't believe it. Huh, how come there are so many people? Roar, roar, roar. Where's my good bro Zhan? What are all these things? With the roars, several terrifying auras approached from afar. It was King and Old Black, along with a large group of mutated beast minions. They had been chasing after the escaped monsters. To the mutated beasts, they were energy and nutrients, and they couldn't let them run. Haha, good bro king, I've finally been waiting for you. Zhan started laughing. Good brothers, help me watch the outside. Kill anyone who dares to run. Don't let a single one go. The reason he was procrastinating was because he was waiting for these mutated beasts to return, not to help them fight, but to watch the scene. Today, he would represent death. Whoever dares to come here, he's going to kill them all. Don't leave one. As he spoke, Zhan waved his hand. On the ground, the bodies of 35 monsters slowly stood up, their eyes full of dim green light. Chapter 103, War. Roar, 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 good bro. Don't worry, with King here, no one can escape. In the distance, King roared loudly. Then, he commanded his minions to surround the area. Although killing people didn't give much benefits and was boring, he would satisfy his good brother's request. What kind of profession is this? Why can those dead monsters still stand up? Are they zombies? No wonder he has so many curses on him, a bit of a pervert. And what's up with those mutated beasts? Are they with this guy? That big tiger and the big black dog are very strong and dangerous. There's something wrong with these corpses. These green eyes are scary. Necromancer? A bit like the necromancers written in those novels. It should also be a hidden class, right? Probably zombies. What's there to be afraid of? They look very weak. You've all seen it on TV, right? Just hit the head. For a time, the people who had been greedy were discussing and gossiping with each other, and their expressions changed dramatically. Fear, anger, disdain. Just now, they were arguing about who should take the treasure, but in an instant, the situation reversed. This is interesting. Who is the prey, and who is the hunter? Honkai sneered, but he didn't feel too scared. He believed that even if he couldn't kill Zhan, escaping shouldn't be a problem. Then, he looked at the angel in the sky and said, Chu Ning, can you use a big move to shine some light? Kill all these annoying things. Chu Ning snorted but didn't move. He was regretting that he was the first one to arrive. If he had quickly grabbed this treasure without showing off, he would have succeeded. Especially after Zhan said what he had. He regretted it so much that he thought his heart would stop beating. At this moment, there were so many people. Although he was an angel, he had no advantage. He could deal with the undead, but Zhan wasn't an undead. What was the point of killing so many undead? Moreover, the cooldown of that big move of his was as long as 15 minutes, and it consumed too much mana. He couldn't use it casually. While thinking, suddenly, 2 undead dragon eagles were charging straight at him. Chu Ning snorted. He would ignore those undead. But those undead actually took the initiative to find him. They were simply asking to die. He raised his holy sword and chanted in a low voice. After a while, 2 beams of light shot down from above the 2 dragon eagles. Holy light spell. Although its range and effect were much worse than holy light illumination, it was still very effective against the undead. The result was that the 2 dragon eagles only stopped in the holy light for a few seconds before rushing out of the holy light and rushing towards him again. What's going on? Were these undead stronger than he imagined? On the ground, Zhan stood on the dragon corpse, with his hands behind his back. The undead that had just been revived were rushing straight to the surrounding area. Everyone coming was a powerhouse, and he had even discovered several famous powerhouses from his previous life. But there were distinctions between powerhouses and powerhouses. If the level of these people was the level of a god general, then he had reached above the level of the human emperor. The biggest threat to him among these people was actually the angel in the sky. That guy was extremely powerful, and he could directly purify the undead below the courage level. That was also why he didn't revive the dragon for the time being. It would be a big loss if it was purified, but it didn't matter. That kind of strength would definitely not be used often, and he could revive the undead infinitely. On the ground, there were countless corpses of monsters, enough to let him revive for more than 10 rounds. The battle broke out directly, and the powerhouses who came from afar discovered that these undead were stronger than they imagined. What was the point of the Angrelis? The proud, noble, and intimidating dragon had certain requirements for the monsters that led the expedition in their capacity. Even the low-level monsters that came to act as suicide squads were not qualified. At the very least, they had to be ordinary intermediate monsters. Therefore, The attributes of the corpses on the ground were not weak to begin with. After being revived, the attributes of these undead are at least 50 to 60. As for physique, they have a strong aid, and each one of them has broken 100. If it weren't for the lack of skills, they would definitely crush most of the professions. The casualties soon appeared, and several weak humans could not stop this group of crazy undead. Then, some non-holy and elf professions began to want to escape. They were just here to join in the fun, and by the way, see if they could pick up any cheap kills. But just as they fled a few meters away, a terrifying lightning bolt had already struck in front of them. The terrifying power shocked them. Roar, 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 all of you get back. My bro said that you can't leave. King roared directly. What kind of power does King have? In the future, even the elf queen would not dare to be presumptuous when she saw this big tiger. That night King might be able to compete with King during the night. What's more, King drank dragon blood and ate a lot of monster meat, and its development speed has often exceeded its previous life. At this moment, if King really joined this battle, it would definitely be a massacre. Everyone looked at each other. They were trapped between a tiger and the undead. They don't know how to run. Uncle Zhang, the development of the situation seems to have far exceeded our imagination. On the other side, Shun Jialuo frowned and said, "That's right. The strength of this guy has improved too fast, a bit difficult." Zhang Long also took a deep breath. Originally, they thought that the enemy would be those people in the competition. Now it seems that the act of killing Lu Zhan itself is the most dangerous thing. These undead were nothing, but the mutated beasts behind him made even this dragon blood warrior feel intimidated. He still recognized the big black dog, but what about the big tiger? Lu Zhan was obviously just a necromancer. Let's clear up these undead first, then we'll see how things go. Zhang Long said. Okay, Uncle Zhang, you lead the team. I'll try to shoot him directly. As Shun Jialuo spoke, she placed the arrow on the bow. However, in the next second, the arrow disappeared directly. The elf race was naturally extremely close to all kinds of elemental attributes. But generally speaking, a hidden profession in the elf department would only be close to one attribute. But Shun Jialuo was different. Her professional talent was a gift from the Elven King. She could use all the attributes: the explosion of fire, the control of ice, the sharpness of gold, the invisibility of darkness, and even the healing of wood. Because of this, she would call herself the Elf Queen. Chapter 104. The Mad Holy Night. Lu Zhan was incredibly focused. The enemies he could see weren't the problem. For him, the most dangerous ones were those he couldn't see. Rogues, assassins, killers, etc. These stealthy classes were undetectable by the undead, and he couldn't even attack them. He was certain that several were already sneaking towards him. After all, he was a necromancer. Logically, his main body was the weakest. Be careful, Lu Zhan reminded them, but was only left with 3 human allies: Zhang Tianfu, Lu Yong, and his little girlfriend, Xiao Yao. The words were barely out of his mouth when Lu Zhan's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he swung his sword at the air. With a cling, an arrow materialized, struck by his sword, and fell to the ground. He was intimately familiar with this arrow. Lu Zhan looked at Shun Jialuo in the distance, pointing his sword at her, his killing intent undisguised. Today, he wouldn't just slay a dragon. He'd slay royalty as well. But just as Lu Zhan finished striking his pose, a dagger stabbed into his chest. With a ding, the dagger struck his chest but couldn't penetrate. Lu Zhan reached out and grabbed an arm. The figure of a stealthed assassin appeared before him, his face full of shock and confusion. He struggled to pull his arm free, but couldn't. "Didn't you have breakfast?" Lu Zhan said casually. Then, with a swift swing of his sword, the assassin's head rolled to the ground. The reason this guy could get close to him was because he posed no threat, so Lu Zhan didn't pay attention to him. The other stealthed assassins were immediately frightened by this and could only retreat, looking for another opportunity. Lu Zhan didn't care. Since no one dared to come and bother him, he would just stand here, unmoving to counter all changes. Then, he saw the Holy Knight. This guy was truly valiant, his 2-handed greatsword seemingly enchanted with holy elements, dealing massive damage to the undead. And his unicorn mount was extraordinary as well, its horn emitting holy light. Working together, the two had already killed 4 or 5 undead. Lu Zhan sneered. This guy had been showing off since the beginning, really stealing the show. Did he want to take the protagonist's role? If so, he would start by killing him. Zhan thought, and the two generals, number 1 and number 2, appeared by his side at the same time. As usual, number 1 was sent out to slash around and stack the more you fight, the stronger you get buff. As for number 2, he had already used the Lothar's Edge skill, Windwalk, and disappeared from sight. Holy was indeed the bane of the undead, but it only had special damage bonuses against the undead. Defensively speaking, Holy didn't offer any bonus against the undead. In the next second, number 2's dark figure appeared directly on the unicorn, stabbing a dagger into Honkai's back. Backstab raid. As long as the distance was sufficient, number 2 could teleport directly behind the enemy, no matter where they were. Holy protection. As a holy-type powerhouse, Honkai's mental strength was high. Instantly sensing the danger, he used his defensive skill without hesitation. In an instant, a shield of light appeared around him. However, the moment the dagger touched the shield, it shattered. Still, it bought him a few seconds. Honkai quickly rolled off the unicorn, looking disheveled and pathetic. The unicorn was quick to react, firing a beam of light at its own back. But number 2's figure had already disappeared. Honkai broke out in a cold sweat. How could this be? How could there be such a terrifying undead? He immediately got up, gripped his greatsword with both hands, and became vigilant. Where was that guy? He couldn't find him. The next time, the Holy Protection skill had a cooldown of 3 minutes. He might not be able to hold out that long. Thinking of this, Honkai shouted at the sky, "Chu Ning, what are you waiting for?" As a knight, his skills were single-target damage, useless against the undead. Up in the air, Chu Ning had already used Holy Light to forcibly purify a dragon eagle, so he wasn't in immediate danger. Hearing the shout, he sneered and said, "Humph, if you're useless, just run." From his perspective, there was no benefit to using Holy Light illumination at this time. "Fine, just you wait," Honkai said angrily, pressed his back against the unicorn's body, gripped his greatsword, and stood on guard. He refused to believe it. That guy could still sneak behind him. But in the next second, the unicorn behind him suddenly let out a shrill scream, and blood sprayed out from behind. Number 2 wasn't an idiot. He was an intelligent undead. Since he couldn't kill the target for the moment, killing the target's mount was a good choice as well. With a boom, the unicorn, as a holy beast, fell directly to the ground, dead. "You bastard!" Honkai completely lost it. As a knight, this unicorn was his initial equipment. There was nowhere to find a second one. When he rode the unicorn, it increased his attributes by 30%. Throughout the whole time, he and the unicorn had developed feelings beyond species. And now, his unicorn was dead. Honkai went berserk, roaring loudly. His entire body emitted a holy light. Holy Knight talent skill, Divine Light. At this moment, all his attributes increased by 100%, and his entire body was covered in holy light, which not only allowed his injuries to heal quickly, but also healed his teammates. But to the undead, this light was fatal. In this state, the undead couldn't even approach him. After transforming, Honkai ignored number 2 and charged directly towards Zhan. Although he was consumed by anger, a sliver of reason remained. He knew the culprit was Zhan. More importantly, as long as he killed Zhan, the huge rewards would make losing the unicorn acceptable. Zhan naturally saw the ball of light charging towards him. He wanted a one-on-one fight. He wouldn't let him get his wish. In the next second, Zhan put on his wings, flapped them a few times, and flew into the sky. Honkai, who was still charging, was stunned, stuck in place. He couldn't fly. This. Blatant mockery. Ah! Honkai roared. He couldn't use his power. He directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Completely losing his mind, he became insane. "You killed my unicorn, so I'll kill your undead." Honkai charged straight towards the undead. Just approaching, the undead began to purify. In just 3 minutes, he slaughtered over 20 undead. But his transformation time was over as well. "Bastard, now you're dead!" Honkai shouted at Zhan, regardless of anything. But in the next second, Zhan waved his hand in the sky. On the ground, the bodies of 30 monsters stood up again. Chapter 105. A Divine Defense. Thud. Han Kai collapsed to the ground, his eyes vacant, utterly broken. Even his beloved unicorn was among the newly resurrected undead, having just stood up again. But then, pfft, a sword pierced his heart. It turned out someone beside him had seized the opportunity to strike him down, putting aside any other motivations, killing him mint gold coins. A powerhouse like Han Kai wouldn't be short on cash. As expected, the attacker heard the system notification and his face instantly lit up with joy. Han Kai, once so spirited and full of ambition, never imagined he would meet such a pathetic end. In an instant, the newly reborn undead charged back into the crowd. Having just endured a fierce battle, the crowd's faces were pale. Was there no end to this torment? Up in the air, Zhan was unconcerned. No matter who did the killing, the rewards would ultimately fall into his hands. Nearby, Chuning also witnessed the scene, and a sense of anger and fear welled up within him. Could he meet the same fate? The thought sent shivers down his spine, and Chuning immediately considered escaping. While the rewards for the curse were incredibly tempting, they weren't worth risking his life. Besides, if Zhan didn't die, he could always seek vengeance after becoming a six-winged angel. Saintly angels were definitely late-game class, becoming more powerful over time. However, just as he was about to flee, Zhan flapped his wings and charged straight at him, clearly intending to fight him one-up. Seeing this, Chuning was thrilled. He didn't expect the other guy to walk right into his trap. A four-winged angel wasn't very offensive, meaning they lacked attack skills. But his constitution and strength attributes were high, both exceeding 100. Chuning gripped his holy sword and slashed at the approaching figure. But the next moment, Zhan vanished from sight. Almost instinctively, Chuning wrapped his wings around himself in defense. Clang! Zhan's crappy sword snapped in two. Although it hadn't pierced through, Chuning felt a tremendous force and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Oh, your wings are nice, quite tough. Zhan couldn't help but admire them. He tossed away the broken sword, preparing to tear the wings apart with his bare hands. But as he moved, a fiery arrow whizzed towards him. Xin Jialua was relentless, never missing an opportunity to attack. Zhan didn't even try to dodge. Instead, he grabbed the angel wrapped in wings and held him in front as a shield. Boom! The explosive arrow struck the wings. Despite the terrifying damage, it still couldn't break through the defense. It was truly absurd. However, Chuning inside coughed up another mouthful of blood. Although the arrow hadn't injured Zhan, it made the crowd below realize something. That's right. Zhan in the air was a sitting duck. They didn't need to attack the undead. They should target the real culprit, Zhan. In an instant, a barrage of attacks rained down on Zhan from all directions. Arrows, magic, hidden weapons. Some even threw their weapons. With so many attacks, it was impossible to tell who would get the kill. But what if they did manage to take down him? Xin Jialua knocked an arrow, but held her shot, focusing all her attention on the skies. She needed to fire that arrow at the crucial moment. Facing so many attacks, Zhan didn't dodge or evade. He simply grabbed the angel with one hand. The angel was entirely enclosed in his wings, like a sphere. Zhan held the ball and began swinging it around with all his strength. The speed was so great that it created a windproof barrier around them. Clang, clang, clang. Boom, boom, boom. The various attacks were deflected by the angel ball, with nothing landing on Zhan. Holy crap, this thing is a divine defense. Zhan was getting into the swing of things. These angel wings were ridiculously tough. He wondered if he could reanimate the being as an undead and turn him into a ball too. That would be a top-tier golden defense. After the round of attacks, Zhan was unharmed, but Chuning inside the wings was in a terrible state. He hadn't been hit directly, but the constant spinning and the impact of the attacks made his head spin and he couldn't stop spitting out blood. At that moment, he finally understood what Han Kai had felt, the desperation and helplessness. You motherf******, I'll fight you to the death. As soon as Zhan stopped spinning, Chuning seized the opportunity and raised his holy sword. He could no longer afford to hide his power. He triggered divine radiance. Holy light descended from the sky once again. Zhan's heart skipped a beat. He quickly recalled number 1 and number 2 into the undead space. As for the rest, they could die if they had to. It didn't matter. Then, taking advantage of Chu Ning opening his wings, he slashed with his sword, severing Chu Ning's head, which fell to the ground. But strangely, the headless Chu Ning remained floating in the air, still in the pose of releasing holy light. The holy light didn't stop either. As before, all the undead were paralyzed by the holy light, slowly being purified, and the exhausted fighters regained their strength, both mental and physical, under the holy light. Quick, now's our chance, let's kill him. Someone immediately realized this was the best opportunity to kill Lu Zhan. Without the undead, this was the perfect time to take down Lu Zhan. Uncle Zhang, have the others hold off the dog and the tiger. You and I will kill Lu Zhan. Xin Jialua said without hesitation. She had already fired 3 arrows in rapid succession. All right. Zhang Long responded, waving his hand. The well-trained squad charged towards the mutated beasts. To put it nicely, they were holding them off. To put it bluntly, they were cannon fodder. They were Shun's family's suicide squad, brainwashed from childhood and no different from puppets. Shun Jialua could send them to their deaths with a single word, without the slightest emotional fluctuation, revealing her ruthless nature. Zhang Long then unleashed his ultimate skill, transforming into a human-dragon hybrid, leaping up more than 10 meters high and instantly arriving next to Lu Zhan. With a roar, Zhang Long punched out, and the sound of a dragon's roar echoed through the air. Lu Zhan snorted coldly. Under the holy light, the undead were being slowly purified, but they hadn't completely returned to the void. So, his attribute bonuses were still active. What was there to fear? Lu Zhan fearlessly punched out as well. Boom! In the air, the 2 fists collided. A terrifying energy exploded outwards. Lu Zhan was blasted backwards, but managed to stabilize himself. Good lord. Worthy of being called a dragon warrior. With the attribute bonus from so many undead, he was still weaker in strength compared to his opponent. But he had high constitution and health points, so he wasn't afraid. However, just as he stabilized himself, a golden arrow hurtled towards him. There was no time to dodge completely, so he could only try to avoid the vital points. The arrow pierced his shoulder. Chapter 106. Entering Demonic State. Damn it! Lu Zhan cursed. The arrow was extremely powerful, piercing right through his shoulder. If it had hit his head, the consequences were unimaginable. He was too focused on exchanging punches with the dragon warrior, forgetting about Shan Jialua. 2 against 1, he was clearly at a disadvantage in the air. Thinking this, Lu Zhan quickly fled towards the ground. There were many people on the ground, making it difficult for Shan Jialua to target him. You motherf***** heirs, come at me. On the ground, Zhang Tianfu roared, activating his taunt skill. He couldn't help in the fight, but the only thing he could do was draw some of the attacks away from Lu Zhan. During the wave of monster killing, he had been continuously activating powerful support skills. Although he hadn't personally attacked, he was constantly contributing to the fight. Every monster killed gave him a share of experience. Currently, he was already at level 15, only 1 level lower than Huang Shengren. It could be said that there were almost no other players in the arena with a higher level than him. With this taunt, all the people who rushed over were successfully taunted, unconsciously attacking him. Holy crap, so many. Zhang Tianfu panicked. Looking around, there were at least 40 or 50 people. He gritted his teeth, disregarding everything else. He closed his eyes and applied all the defense skills and buffs he had. The rest was up to fate. As a result, an incredibly miraculous scene occurred. Among the buffs Zhang Tianfu had cast on himself, there was a skill called Lucky Evasion. It could give him a 10% chance to evade. But it was this 10% chance of evasion that made 80% of the attacks miss. If Lu Zhan saw this, he would definitely curse loudly. Damn you, Tianfu. Seeing this, Lu Yong on the side was also dumbfounded. Originally, he had been ready to pick up his great sword and fight. But then everyone rushed at Zhang Tianfu, leaving him. What was he supposed to do? You motherf***** heirs, what are you two standing around for? One heal me and one kill. Zhang Tianfu shouted angrily while enduring the barrage of attacks. At this critical moment, these two teammates were actually AFK? Xiao Yao immediately reacted, raising her staff and continuously healing Zhang Tianfu. The healing sorcery Lu Zhan had given her was a healing skill from the gods. Although it didn't heal much each time, its cooldown was short and its consumption was low, allowing her to cast it almost continuously. As for Lu Yong, he gripped his greatsword tightly, unsure of what to do. Since the apocalypse, he had killed countless monsters, but he could never bring himself to kill humans. Right now, it was the same. In his opinion, humans should unite together to kill all the monsters. How could they kill each other? At this moment, Lu Zhan in the air finally reached the ground, took a look at the scene, and almost without hesitation hid behind Zhang Tianfu. Just now, his undead had finally given out and been completely purified. It was his weakest moment. He didn't even have time to reanimate any undead, because above, a terrifying aura was descending. Above, Zhang Long roared. He punched out. On his fist, a golden phantom dragon burst forth, roaring toward Lu Zhan's location. Boom! The dragon slammed into the ground, sending terrifying energy in all directions. This attack had no specific target. All the players who were attacking Zhang Tianfu were hit, resulting in countless casualties. Even Zhang Tianfu was directly knocked to the ground, his body in excruciating pain. But luckily, he was still alive. Huh, what was that under him? Just as Zhang Tianfu was wondering, he heard Lu Zhan's near-suffocating voice. Motherf ******, you're so heavy, get the hell off me. Zhang Tianfu disregarded his pain and quickly rolled to the side. Just now, he really hadn't noticed that Lu Zhan had hid behind him. On the ground, Lu Zhan was also extremely battered and bruised. Although the golden dragon hadn't directly hit him, its powerful destructive force had injured him in many places. If he didn't have Zhang Tianfu as a meat shield just now, he would have been seriously injured if not dead. He couldn't worry about anything else. He had to quickly reanimate the undead. The effects of the divine radiance had ended, and Chu Ning's headless body fell from the air. What was strange was that his pair of wings and the holy sword had inexplicably disappeared. The next second, as over 30 undead stood up again, Lu Zhan felt the return of his attributes, finally giving him a sense of security. Ah! Why? Why? But at this moment, an extremely shrill voice suddenly sounded. Lu Zhan turned around. He saw a battle-scarred Lu Yong kneeling on the ground, and in his arms lay the tattered Xiao Yao, already lifeless. Just now, when the golden dragon arrived, Lu Yong was still struggling with whether or not to kill someone. Xiao Yao pushed him to the ground and used her body as a shield to withstand most of the damage for him. Xiao Yao, you, wake up, I promised you. I would give you a perfect wedding. After we get married, you have to give me children. We'll have many children. I've already thought of the names. Boys will be called Luda, Lu Xiaoer, Lu Xiaosan. Girls will be called Lu Xiaomei, Lu Ermei, Lu Sanmei. It's stupid, isn't it? I know it's stupid. You, wake up and scold me. Call me stupid, call me dumb. Lu Yong spoke softly, tears constantly flowing down his face, dripping onto Xiao Yao's body. Alas, Teacher Lu, please accept my condolences. At this moment, Lu Zhan's heart was also a little sad, not knowing what to say. Lu, brother Lu, tell me, was I wrong? Lu Yong's voice suddenly became cold. I can't say you were wrong, only that you are not suitable for this era. Lu Zhan sighed and said. He was about to comfort him a few more words, but he felt the terrifying aura in the air rapidly approaching. Motherf ******, you dare come. Lu Zhan was furious. He always had a good impression of Xiao Yao, and she was Lu Yong's lover. This time, she died because of him. It was impossible not to feel guilty. He wanted to tear this so-called dragon warrior apart with his bare hands. Brother Lu, let me do it. Just as Lu Zhan was about to make a move, he saw Lu Yong slowly stand up holding his greatsword. At this moment, his body was emitting waves of blood-colored aura, and his eyes were burning red as if with flames. Just now, a system notification had sounded in his mind. Ding! Detected that your heart meets the criteria for entering demonic state. Activated hidden talent skill. Enter demonic state. Talent skill. Enter demonic state. After activation, strength, constitution, and agility attributes are increased by 300%. All skill power is increased by 50%, cooldown is reduced by 80%, and mana consumption is 0. Note: pay attention to controlling the duration. Prolonged demonic state will completely demonize you, turning you into a demonic person without any reason. Chapter 107. Damned. In the next second, Lu Yong shot into the air like a cannonball. With a boom, he didn't care about anything and directly collided with Zhang Long, who was descending from the sky with pure violence and brutality. But even with a 300% boost, Lu Yong's strength was still no match for the dragonized Zhang Long. With the impact, Lu Yong was directly sent flying out, crashing heavily on the ground. However, Zhang Long's attack was thwarted, and he had no leverage in the air. Helpless, he could only land on the ground as well. Interesting. Who are you? Zhang Long smoothed out his tumbling breath. His eyes flashed with a brilliant light. Lu Yong stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and did not speak. His eyes were full of madness and killing. In an instant, his body disappeared from the spot and arrived in front of Zhang Long. The greatsword was thrust straight into the ground. Zhang Long's face changed slightly, and he instantly threw out a punch. But it was too late. At the location where the two were standing, a burst of blood-red aura soared into the sky, blasting Zhang Long into the air. It was the Berserker's signature skill, Blood Aura Burst. In the Blood Aura, Lu Yong had already pulled out his greatsword and swung it fiercely towards the sky. A blood-red cross sword chi shot straight out from the greatsword. At this moment, Zhang Long was in a controlled state and could not dodge or resist. He was hit head-on by the cross slash and sent flying out again. On the ground, Lu Yong leaped up and chased after him. However, at this time, Zhang Long was only knocked away, but he was not controlled. He forcibly twisted his body in midair and threw a punch. Both of them were violent, with a straightforward fighting style. If it was a movie, it would definitely make the audience's blood boil. But in reality, it would only make people feel blood and fear. Lu Zhan closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were full of killing intent and anger. You are really damned. Forcing a good saint to be like this now. As he spoke, the ground began to tremble, and the giant dragon corpse that was originally lying on the ground opened its eyes, releasing a dim green light, and slowly stood up. And that was not the end of it. Lu Zhan waved his hand, directly with group sacrifice. The 30-odd undead that had just been reborn were instantly strengthened into 7 elite-level undead. With the death of the angel, Lu Zhan could finally let go. Then, group transmigration, group sacrifice. In just a dozen seconds, what stood in front of him were 31 elite-level undead, 1 giant dragon undead, and number 1 and number 2 from the undead space. Undead Red Dragon. Traits: Ordinary Undead. Strength: 598. Constitution: 680. Agility: 489. These attributes were simply outrageous. Unfortunately, it did not have the blessing of fire attribute. Moreover, Lu Zhan discovered the biggest characteristic of this giant dragon undead. That was that it could not fly. Flying should be a special attribute of the giant dragon, not a physical one. After all, it did not have wings. If it couldn't fly, the giant dragon instantly dropped by 5 levels. Crawling on the ground? That wouldn't make it a snake. But this guy was just left in place to bless Lu Zhan's attributes, which was also extremely terrifying. With the blessing of these undead, Lu Zhan's 3 major attributes had all broken through 500, and his physique had reached more than 700 with the blessing of strong support. And that was not the limit. His undead could also be strengthened to the heroic level. He could also summon undead. If he added it all up, his attributes could even break 1,000. At the current stage, breaking 100 in a certain attribute could be called a strong person. Kill. Lu Zhan snorted coldly. All the undead scattered towards the remaining people. The ordinary undead had already made these people miserable, and this time they became elite level. The scene presented a one-sided crushing. The elite level undead could be said to be invulnerable to swords and guns in front of these professional. What was there to fight? For a time, a large number of people no longer cared about the mutated beasts and fled in all directions. Anyway, staying behind was death, and running away might be able to live through it. In the air, Zhang Long, who was still fighting with Lu Yong, had a slight change in his face, and after punching Lu Yong away, his whole person shot towards Shangela like a cannonball. At this time, Lu Yong had long been blinded by anger. He was about to chase after him, but someone grabbed him. Without looking back, Lu Yong slashed out with his sword. Boom, there was a sound. The greatsword slashed on Lu Zhan's body, and powerful blood chi scattered in all directions. However, Lu Zhan remained motionless, and there were no wounds on his body. This was the terrifying effect of more than 700 physique. Teacher Lu, it's time to wake up, there's no need to risk yourself. Lu Zhan punched Lu Yong in the face, only using 3 points of strength. But even so, it made Lu Yong's face explode, and blood flowed straight down. Lu Yong's current state was not right, a bit like that Jokai before. Lu Zhan guessed that it should also be the kind that the longer the time, the more he would lose his mind. He didn't want to kill the other party with his own hands when the time came. The severe pain of this punch made Lu Yong's anger subside a little, and he finally controlled himself. It was clearly written in the talent description that if the time was too long, he would become a demon who only knew how to kill. He would rather die than become such a thing. After the end of the demonization, Lu Yong's face was full of pain. I'm sorry, Brother Lu. Don't worry. I will bring people back and let you kill them yourself. Lu Zhan patted the other party on the shoulder and said. But at this time, an arrow actually appeared on the back of his head, and the speed was so fast that Lu Zhan had almost no time to react. But Lu Zhan didn't need to react at all. This arrow was like shooting on a steel plate, and with a clang sound, it broke directly and did not even scratch a single strand of scalp. Some people really think that just because they're women, I won't kill them? Lu Zhan said indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, his body had disappeared from the spot. With more than 500 agility, it was like a flash in the eyes of this group of people. In the distance, Shen Jialuo's face was slightly pale. The arrow just now was already the strongest arrow she could use at the moment. But she didn't expect that she wouldn't even be able to break through the other party's defense. Miss Run? In front, Zhang Long shouted extremely urgently. The moment Lu Zhan transmuted and sacrificed the undead, he knew that there was no chance of winning this battle. The terrifying aura of the giant dragon and a large number of undead, as well as Lu Zhan. After turning into a dragon man, not only were all of his attributes enhanced, his perception ability was also greatly enhanced. But at that moment, he could not sense Lu Zhan's depth at all. There was only one possibility, and that was that the other party's power far exceeded his imagination. Therefore, he did not hesitate at all, and was about to take Shen Jialuo to escape. Miss cannot die. This was the greatest significance of his existence as a death warrior. But in the next second, Zhang Long felt that his body was out of control. What are you running for? You haven't finished fighting with my brother yet. Then, Lu Zhan punched the other party in the stomach. This punch, 5 points of strength, took half of Zhang Long's life. There was no way Lu Yong could not beat this Dragon King in a normal state, and Lu Zhan had to make this duel fairer. Lu Zhan threw it hard and threw Zhang Long directly to where Lu Yong was. Chapter 108, Faith. Seeing this scene, Shen Jialuo completely panicked. Even last time, she was not so panicked. She was proud and conceited. Powerful hidden profession, powerful talent, and powerful background power. Shen Jialuo believed that she was definitely one of the strongest people in the apocalypse. Even if someone was stronger than her, it was impossible for her to be much stronger. Last time, although she also lost, but at that time, the apocalypse had just begun. Many of her advantages had not yet been reflected. Shen Jialuo was not convinced at all, and only thought that Lu Zhan was lucky for a while. So, this time, when she heard about Lu Zhan's information, she brought people over without hesitation, vowing to take this huge curse reward. At that time, she was definitely the first person in this world. But at this moment, Shen Jialuo realized in horror. How could there be such a terrifying person in this world? Lu Zhan's figure was like a demon, growing bigger and bigger in her heart, so big that it occupied everything. She trembled as she raised her bow, wanting to shoot the last arrow. However, as soon as she put on the arrow, she found that she could not shoot this arrow at all. You are really not good. You ran away last time. Lu Zhan grabbed Shen Jialuo's hand, and the powerful force made it impossible for her to open the bow. For the sake of being classmates, Can you let me go? Shun Jialua's voice trembled. I can do anything for you. If it was before the apocalypse, any man, seeing such a beautiful woman say such a thing to him, would probably not be able to hold back. But unfortunately, Lu Zhan punched out with one hand. With a smack sound, Shun Jialua's beautiful head exploded instantly. The future elven queen died just like that. There was no difference from those ordinary people. Lu Zhan threw the headless corpse on the ground, crisp and neat. He was not a bad person. He would not make the low-level mistake of bad guys dying from talking too much. Ding, congratulations on killing the chosen one of the elf race. From now on, the elf race will never die with you. Ding, congratulations on passing the preliminary test of the Necromancer Lord and obtaining the Necromancer Lord's primary authority. Ding, congratulations on opening the Faith Collection system. As the spokesperson of the Necromancer Lord, you will collect faith for the Necromancer Lord and spread death. At the same time, you can use some of the power of faith. 3 consecutive voices rang out, making Lu Zhan a little dazed. There was a lot of information in these 3 sentences, and they were all things that he had never been exposed to, or even heard of, in his previous life. The first one could be ignored directly. That chosen one obviously referred to Shanjalua. As for what was said about never dying, there was nothing to say, then that was it. That preliminary test probably referred to killing Shanjalua, the spokesperson of the elves. In other words, death and elves were opposites. This was simply nonsense. All the way, what was death not opposite to? But what was the primary authority of the Necromancer Lord? And what was faith? Could it be that there really were gods? Were the things behind these human professions gods? Never mind. Let's ignore these things first and kill the people below. Next, Lu Zhan attacked with all his strength. In just a few minutes, there was no one standing except for Lu Zhan and his people. Just as Lu Zhan said, they all killed them. Roar, roar, roar. Good brother Lu Zhan. This killing is so satisfying, killing monsters and then killing people. King roared loudly. This big tiger was now extremely terrifying. Even when Lu Zhan stood in front of it, he was a little frightened. If this lightning came down, he might also be injured. As expected of the thunder tiger god. Woof, woof, woof. Big cat, I killed 15. How many did you kill? To the side. Old Black also called out, with a provocative look on his face. This old dog was also outrageously strong. Naturally, it was not as good as the big tiger in its normal state, but if it activated the giant demon bloodline, it was really hard to say who was stronger and who was weaker. Stop talking nonsense. I've left the corpse of that one-eyed giant and the earth dragon for you. Go and eat it quickly. Lu Zhan ignored these 2 guys and said directly, I'm afraid I can't help but turn them into undead. The corpses of these 2 guys were too tempting. Although they could not compare to the giant dragon, Lu Zhan estimated that they would have at least 300 attribute points after being resurrected. Roar, 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 good brother Lu Zhan. Woof, 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 good master Lu Zhan. The 2 mutated beasts instantly turned into thunderballs and disappeared in the spot. Lu Zhan instantly flashed to Zhang Tianfu's side. Brother Lu, these 2 guys? Seeing Lu Zhan come back, Zhang Tianfu was speechless. Not far away, Zhang Long and Lu Yong were still fighting with blood all over their bodies, exhausted, and even using all kinds of tricks from the small gangsters fighting. Lu Yong wanted to avenge his dead wife. Zhang Long also saw Shanjalua's death. As a death warrior, he was bound to die. So, he also wanted to pull a backer with him when he died. Lu Zhan ignored them. The 2 of them were in a never-ending situation, and he could not intervene. Even if Lu Yong died here, that was his own choice. At this moment, what Lu Zhan was more concerned about was, just now, when he approached Zhang Tianfu, the system's voice actually rang in his mind. Ding, it has been detected that there is an object that can spread faith too. Spread faith? How should it be spread? Lu Zhan's eyes stared straight at Zhang Tianfu. Zhang Tianfu's whole body shook. Feeling the chrysanthemum ache faintly, he remembered the feeling when he first met Brother Lu. So, could he finally escape this disaster? He might as well go all out. Come on, Brother Lu. Do you want to take the initiative or be passive? Lu Zhan frowned, not knowing what this guy was thinking in his mind, and asked directly, Do you believe in death? What? Believe in death? What is that? Zhang Tianfu was confused and blurted out. Lu Zhan thought for a while and asked again, If I say that I represent death, will you believe in me? Brother Liu, I definitely believe in you. It's not believing, it's faith. What is faith? Damn it, you just tell me if you believe in me or not. Lu Zhan was angry. Believe, 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 Brother Liu, I believe in you. Zhang Tianfu said weakly. Lu Zhan frowned again, but there was no reaction at all. Could it be that this Zhang Tianfu was not sincere enough? Then do you believe in death? Zhang Tianfu quickly nodded and said, I believe in death. As soon as he said this, there was finally some reaction in Lu Zhan's mind. Ding, congratulations on successfully harvesting a believer for the Lord of the Undead. Lu Zhan opened the attribute panel. Sure enough, there was a faith interface at the bottom. Clicking on this interface, it was showing the only believer, Zhang Tianfu, primary believer. Note, you can initially use the authority of faith to obtain 10% of the attributes of the believer. At the same time, after 24 hours, you can use one of the believer's skills. Chapter 109, The Power of Faith. Why? Lu Zhan sighed deeply, his face full of unwillingness and grievance. He just wanted to slowly become stronger through his own efforts and struggles. Why? Why did so many cheats have to open up for him? This feeling, it was so damn good. Lu Zhan carefully checked his attributes, and sure enough, there was a very obvious increase. Especially in the Constitution column, there were more than 20 points. That meant Zhang Tianfu's Constitution was as high as 200 points. This didn't count the amplification of strong support, but his Constitution itself. Apart from Lu Zhan, this Constitution number was quite incredible. In addition, Lu Zhan's mind raced. Sure enough, below the follower Zhang Tianfu, all his active skills appeared, including taunt and strong support. In other words, he could activate this crazy Constitution boost himself in the future without Zhang Tianfu being present. If he had more followers in the future, wouldn't he become a total master of all trades? What mages, priests, warriors, swordsmen, he could use them all. Even if he could trick a holy-type person into defecting, this necromancer could turn into light. Just thinking about it made him feel amazing. In this way, the so-called spreading death might be to recruit followers. If there really were so-called gods, then the Necromancer Lord should control the world of death, and perhaps there were other gods in the world of the living. The Necromancer Lord had asked him to spread death in the world of the living and recruit followers. That wasn't a good idea. It was totally to occupy others' people and territory, and I would be very surprised if I did not get targeted. As for why the gods of the living world didn't directly kill him, that could only be said that gods weren't omnipotent. Perhaps there was a higher existence. Perhaps there was some kind of rule restriction. This wasn't something Lu Zhan could speculate on. Lu, Brother Liu, I seem to be a little different. At this moment, Zhang Tianfu said in disbelief. Lu Zhan raised his eyebrows and asked, Where are you different? Just now, my constitution suddenly increased by 50 points, and then there was a strange attribute, pain reduction of 40%. And that taunt skill has also changed. It has become a death taunt. When the taunt is successful, it will stack a death erosion buff on the enemy. Zhang Tianfu's eyes lit up as he spoke. Lu Zhan was also shocked when he heard this. Putting aside the 50 attributes, which was already quite amazing, pain reduction, which was definitely a divine attribute for a tank. Just now, so many people hit him, and he was really in pain all over his body. His body could withstand it, but his spirit was about to collapse. And after becoming Death Taunt, the original control skill had directly become a large-scale destructive control skill, which had been enhanced who knows how many times. That was also right. The benefits of faith were originally mutual. If followers didn't have benefits, then why should they believe in gods? By the way, Brother Liu, where's that black mist? I don't seem to see it. At this time, Zhang Tianfu said with some doubts. Lu Zhan naturally knew what he meant. He was reminding him to be careful of that Night Emperor. He secretly regretted it. That guy is too smart, he ran away. I didn't catch him. This Night Emperor had completely disappeared after appearing for a while from the beginning. Even Lu Zhan didn't know when the other party had left. That guy probably ran without hesitation after seeing the terrifying strength displayed by Lu Zhan, not even showing his face. Lu Zhan sneered, and didn't take it too seriously. After the faith was opened, the gap between the Night Emperor and him would only become bigger and bigger. What Night Emperor? Bullshit. Then, Lu Zhan flew directly back to the scope of Donghai City. At this moment, there were still many survivors in this city, and these people were completely numb and trembling. First, the giant dragon led the monsters to attack the city, and it was finally beaten back. Then a group of strong people came to fight outside the city. The scene had completely exceeded the scope they could understand. Now it had finally calmed down, and the terrifying dragon slayer and the great demon who killed everyone had come to their place. Those who were not firm in their will directly knelt down and kowtowed, only asking for mercy. Lu Zhan was expressionless, flew to the ground, walked to a person, and asked directly, "Do you believe in death?" With a plop sound, this person knelt down directly. "Don't kill me. Damn it, who wants to kill you? I'm asking you if you believe in death." "Then, brother, should I believe or shouldn't I believe?" "You have to ask yourself." Then I don't believe in death?" Believe. I believe in death." Hearing this sentence, Lu Zhan frowned. There was no response, and there was no change in the faith on the attribute panel. Next, he asked several people in a row. Sure enough, everyone failed. Lu Zhan was not disappointed. He was mentally prepared. Just saying a sentence of faith could make you truly believe? In your dreams. How could recruiting followers be so simple? Although Lu Zhan had never been a god, he had also read many online novels and the like. According to a more popular understanding, God was more of a spiritual sustenance for believers. They revered gods, worshipped gods, and believed in gods even more. It was absolutely impossible to make people fear them with violence and make them believers. Although Zhang Tianfu didn't know what death represented, but he at least respected Lu Zhan and believed in Lu Zhan, so he could become a follower. This was a bit troublesome. Originally, according to Lu Zhan's idea, he just wanted to be a lone wolf, free and unrestrained. When his strength was strong, he could go wherever he wanted. But if he wanted to spread faith, he definitely couldn't just rely on saying it. The most basic requirement was to protect his followers. Could it be that he also wanted to build some kind of large shelter and be a human emperor or something? Suddenly before, Lu Zhan had a guess. The reason why the 8 emperors of the previous life built shelters, was it to spread the faith? For example, the Elven Queen. What she spread must be the faith of the elves. While thinking, Lu Zhan flew up again and flew back to Zhang Tianfu's side. "Brother Lu, the 2 people over there have finished fighting." Zhang Tianfu pointed to the side and said. Lu Zhan looked over. He saw Lu Yong kneeling on the ground with the corpse of Xiao Yao in front of him, and in his hand, he was holding Zhang Long's head. The dignified Dragon King had fallen to such a point. It could only be said that in the apocalypse, no one could be undefeated forever. Even Lu Zhan. He didn't dare to say that he was invincible in the world. He could kill ordinary giant dragons, but if there was an elite level or even a warrior level giant dragon, it could probably hang him up and beat him. Lu Zhan walked over, patted Lu Yong on the shoulder, and said, "Teacher Lu, do you believe in death?" "Death?" Lu Yong opened his mouth, his voice a little hoarse. "I believe in death." The person he loved the most was dead. His heart was also dead. Then, why not believe in death? Ding! Congratulations on successfully harvesting a believer for the Lord of the Undead. Sure enough, as expected, Lu Yong was qualified to become a follower of death. Lu Zhan opened the panel, but was surprised to find Lu Yong was not a primary follower, but an intermediate follower. Chapter 110, Sacrifice. Intermediate Believer. The provided attribute bonus was actually 20%, and the effect of using the other party's skills was increased by 10%. Lu Zhan was also surprised. He didn't expect that there would be such a change. And the most amazing thing was, the wound on Lu Yong's body actually began to emit strands of black air, healing at a rate visible to the naked eye. As for other changes, Lu Zhan had no way of knowing without Lu Yong saying it himself. "Teacher Lu, let's bury Xiao Yao, and we'll go back to the city first." Lu Zhan patted Lu Yong on the shoulder and said, "Lu, brother Lu, can I ask you for a favor?" Lu Yong did not get up, but said, "You say." Lu Zhan nodded. I know you can turn dead things into undead. Can you turn Xiao Yao into an undead?" Lu Yong said. Lu Zhan's body shook. He didn't expect that Teacher Lu would have such a crazy side. This guy was trapped in a demonic barrier. But he didn't know what to say about this. After all, although he had slept with many women in both lives combined, he had never really experienced love. He didn't want to experience it either. He had heard that this thing was very troublesome, and he could tell from Lu Yong's appearance. Old Lu, you're a bit of that. To the side, Zhang Tianfu couldn't help but say. Xiao Yao was originally with him, and he was very sad that she died now. But in order to keep her and turn her into an undead, that was against human ethics. I just want to see her every day, Lu Yong said extremely painfully. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Zhan's eyes glowed green. In front of Lu Yong, Xiao Yao's body slowly stood up, motionless. Xiao Yao, you're back, Xiao Yao. Lu Yong was so happy that he cried, as if the person standing in front of him was a living Xiao Yao. However, in the next second, Xiao Yao disappeared from the spot. Teacher Lu, Xiao Yao's body is a bit damaged. After entering the undead space, it can repair itself. When she recovers, I will return her to you. Lu Zhan said. Don't worry, I can promise you that I will never issue any orders to Xiao Yao. Although this would take up one of his undead spots, he was still willing to fulfill Lu Yong's wish. As for the others, he didn't want to care. With his extremely shallow understanding of love, if Xiao Yao knew, she would probably be willing to leave her body to accompany Lu Yong. Since both parties agreed, then there was nothing to say. Thank you, Brother Lu. Lu Yong grabbed Lu Zhan's hand extremely excitedly and said, Okay, you two go back first, I still have to deal with all these monster corpses. Lu Zhan helped Lu Yong up and said. After a while, only Lu Zhan was left in this battlefield, as well as the bodies of monsters and humans all over the ground. King and Old Black had already dragged their respective food back to their lair to slowly enjoy. Such a big head, it couldn't be eaten in a short period of time. Lu Zhan summoned number 1, and then directly upgraded the sacrifice skill to level 6. Number 1 strength was definitely the top strength in the current human stage. But Lu Zhan could say that he completely led others by who knows how many versions, and he was clearly being targeted by the entire world. The enemies he would face in the future would definitely exceed his imagination. Facing those guys, number 1's initial attributes were a bit low. If they really fought, before the ever-stronger buff was stacked, it might be blasted to death. But number 1's skills were too buggy, and with its terrifying fighting instinct, Lu Zhan couldn't abandon it. Don't look at the giant dragon undead's attributes being several times that of number 1, but the real combat power was definitely stronger than number 1. A giant dragon that couldn't fly was too stupid. Therefore, strengthening number 1 was imminent. Then, Lu Zhan summoned all the 30-odd elite-level undead. Then, his heart was vicious. All the 30-odd undead began to emit black mist and entered number 1's body. Since it had been decided, then he would just go for it. All the 30-odd elite-level undead were sacrificed to number 1. 3 minutes later, the sacrifice was completed. Lu Zhan looked at the system notification. It was only half successful. Number 1's 3 major attributes had increased by 30 or 40 points, and everything else was the same. As for evolution, there was not a trace of it. This wave, he suffered a blood loss. But since it had already started, then there was no turning back. With group reincarnation and sacrifice, in just 10 seconds, in front of Lu Zhan, 30 elite undead had stood again. This time, Lu Zhan did not brutally sacrifice them all to number 1. Instead, he waved his hand again, and 30 elite undead strengthened 5 warrior-level undead. Then, Lu Zhan sacrificed these 5 warrior-level undead to number 1. Sure enough, using warrior-level undead as sacrifices, the sacrifice was all successful, and number 1's 3 major attributes also skyrocketed, with the minimum being more than 100. In this way, number 1's 3 major attributes had reached more than 300, and agility had broken through 400, which was barely enough to look at. But the consumption was also huge. An average of 6 undead produced an elite, and 7 elites produced a warrior. In other words, number 1 had consumed as many as 400 or 500 monster corpses in a short period of time. And on the ground, there were not many left. Lu Zhan did not plan to sacrifice these monsters to number 1. After all, the crisis could come at any time, and he must always maintain his peak state. After a while, the monster corpses on the ground had been exhausted, and in Lu Zhan's undead space, in addition to number 1, number 2, and the undead dragon. There were also 20 warrior-level monsters and 14 elite-level monsters. He could only do this for the time being. After a series of battles, Zhan was a little tired, both mentally and physically. Flying back to the city, Zhan directly found Zhang Tianfu and said, "Afu, find some women, give me a massage and warm the bed, remember, it has to be voluntary." And while Zhan was immersed in the beauty, several posts had been fermenting rapidly on the forum, detonating and then attracting national attention. Evil Big Devil slaughtered hundreds of human powerhouses. Human scum. If this person is not destroyed, the human race will be in danger. The elven queen of the Shen family was killed, and the killer is suspected of being in cahoots with the devil. The decline of morality, or the distortion of human nature. The killer set up a trap to kill thousands of human powerhouses. A shocking bad news, tens of thousands of human powerhouses died in vain. These posts did not know who had posted them, and all the spearheads were pointing at one name. Zhan. His occupation, equipment, skills, and strength were all exposed. The first on the level 18 rank. Occupation Necromancer, controlling the undead. Equipped with a lot of divine equipment. The strength is extremely heaven-defying. As for gold coins, there were even so many that he could not count them all. For a time, Zhan's reputation was greatly enhanced, of course, all evil names. On the forum now, they had already treated Huang Shengren as the strongest leader of the human race. And Zhan, without a doubt, became the biggest villain. Someone even called for Huang Shengren to go on an expedition, punish the wicked and eliminate evil, which was simply outrageous. Chapter 111. The Ghost Rider. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Zhan opened the window and felt invigorated. The intense battle of the previous day had finally released his pent-up emotions, leaving him feeling surprisingly relaxed, almost detached from the anxieties of the apocalypse. At this stage, he considered himself, without false modesty, to be the strongest human alive. Amongst the monsters, he feared nothing short of the top-tier, hero-rank creatures. He could practically walk sideways through the world without worry. Forget about any human emperors, celestial kings, or divine generals. He was now the strongest of humanity. How could he not feel relaxed? He was currently in the highest building in the city, what had once been a 6-star hotel. The enhancement to his physique was comprehensive. Zhan's eyesight was now, without exaggeration, comparable to having telescopic vision. Surveying his surroundings, the entire city was laid out before him. First, his gaze fell upon the city center, where lightning crackled and booms echoed. No doubt, Big Wong and Old Black were at it again. Of course, these two were now, respectively, his good friend and his somewhat insignificant subordinate. Any fighting between them was kept in check, mere sparring. Then, in a corner of the city, he spotted several figures fighting over something. Inside one house, a family of 3 survivors were enjoying a rare moment of peace and warmth amidst the chaos. In another, a man and a woman were engaged in activities best left undescribed. On a street, a group of young people were engaged in combat, not a fight to the death, but rather a training exercise. This was a small snapshot of the apocalypse. Zhan drew back from the view and began to ponder his path forward. The first order of business, of course, was the materials for the blood lament. With that sword, combined with his own attributes, his combat power would at least double. Thinking of this, Zhan pulled out his phone. He was greeted by a flood of messages. 81 who, bro, I've gathered the stuff. Where are you? 81 who, bro, you there? Hello? 81 who, bro, you're not trying to scam me, are you? Or did you kick the bucket? 81 who, goddamn it. You better hope I don't find you, or I'll dig up your ancestors. 81 who, followed by a long string of curse words. Clearly, this 81 who had put a lot on the line to collect the materials. If Zhan didn't take them now, the man had every right to be enraged. Lonely Invincible. Sorry, bro, been busy lately. Didn't check my phone. The instant the message was sent, a reply came back within 3 seconds. 81 who, bro, you're alive. Lonely Invincible. Put the stuff on the auction house. I'll buy it. 81 who, bro, 10,000 isn't going to cut it. Market prices have gone up. Gotta add some more. This wasn't a lie. As the class holders grew stronger, the value of blueprints and materials would naturally increase. A price hike was inevitable. Zhan didn't argue. He simply replied, "Lonely Invincible, 30,000, take it or leave it." Zhan glanced at his gold reserves. 1,328,171. 30,000? Peanuts. A moment later, he received a reply from 8.1Who. 8.1Who, done bro. Zhan wasted no time and immediately purchased the items from the auction house. That left only the Bloodshot Eyes essence as the final component. Zhan hadn't heard much about that creature in his past life, only that it was a serpentine, hero-rank monster of considerable power, not on par with dragons, but still a top-tier monster. After thinking it over, Zhan sent a message. "Lonely Invincible, bro, ever heard of the Bloodshot Eye? This grave robber clearly got around. His knowledge might even surpass that of a reborn person like himself." 8.1Who, Bloodshot Eye? Nope, but I can ask around for you. For a price, of course. Lonely Invincible, location info, 10,000 gold. If you can get me the Bloodshot Eyes essence directly, 100,000 gold. 8.1Who, bro, rest assured. Give me 3 days, tops. I'll find that Bloodshot Eye, even if it's hiding in the clouds. Somewhere in the world. Lure stared at his phone, eyes gleaming. Who the hell was this guy? Was he using some kind of money-printing cheat code? 100,000 gold coins without even blinking? He quickly opened a group chat and sent a message. Reward, 100 gold coins for information on the Bloodshot Eye. Zhan pocketed his phone. If he could get the essence directly, that would be ideal. That matter was relatively simple. What bothered him more was the matter of spreading death. He couldn't simply do nothing. The situation was clear. The undead lord had granted him so much power, protection, and authority that he was clearly expected to propagate death. If he didn't, he would undoubtedly offend the undead lord. As it stood, he was already antagonizing all the gods of this world. If he ended up offending the undead lord as well, he would truly be finished. So, how should he spread death? Simply put, become a cult leader? Zhan was skilled at killing, but he was terrible at persuasion. He was at a loss. Zhan sighed, sat down in a chair, and decided to put it aside for the time being. He still needed to fill his undead summon slots. Even if they were just common-level undead, they would still contribute to his overall stats. Not to mention their spirit. Zhan waved his hand and cast Undead Summon. The next second, a surge of death energy erupted. Zhan's eyes lit up. This energy was similar to when the Death Assassin appeared. Promising. Indeed. A black armored warrior riding a skeletal horse appeared, holding a spear. What stood out was the skeletal horse, its body wreathed in ghostly green flames. Ghost Rider. Traits: Hero Rank, Commander. Strength, 220. Constitution, 187. Agility, 168. Spirit, 105. Skills: Death Charge, Ghostly Roar, All-Out Assault. Zhan immediately stood up. Good heavens! What was happening? Could it be that after acquiring a portion of the Undead Lord's authority, the world's targeted harassment was now ineffective? He'd summoned a hero rank unit on his first try, and not just any hero rank. A commander trait hero rank undead. That was equivalent to a general. Could it be possible to command the undead in battle? Until now, Zhan had left his undead to fight however they wanted. There were too many undead. He couldn't control them all, only issuing orders to Unit 1. If this Ghost Rider could truly command the undead, the strength of the undead army would increase by at least 5 levels. That was the difference between a scattered mob and an organized military force. Zhan willed it, and the Ghost Rider was drawn back into the undead space. Then, he focused his consciousness on the interior of that space. Indeed, the moment the Ghost Rider appeared, the previously listless and wandering undead all converged and formed into ranks before it. Even Unit 2 did so. Only Unit 1 remained alone in the distance, unmoving. So, this must be the undead's instincts. Like soldiers encountering an officer. Chapter 112, Undead Priest. Zhan felt a surge of elation. If he could summon 40 or 50 hero rank undead, his stats would all break 1,000. Then he would dare to challenge even a hero rank dragon. Eagerly, Zhan cast Undead Summon again. Not hero rank, an elite rank undead mage. But this was a good start. Anything but common rank was an improvement. So, continue. Lu Zhan summoned 30 more. 17 elite rank and 13 common rank. That at least proved that his luck had returned to normal. As he summoned again, that surge of death energy appeared once more. Lu Zhan's eyes lit up. Another hero rank. What appeared was a black figure cloaked in robes, holding a black book. Undead priest. Traits. Hero rank, priest. Strength, 50. Constitution, 217. Agility, 50. Intelligence, 328. Spirit, 512. Skills, death mass. A staggering 512 spirit. Lu Zhan was somewhat shocked. The next second, something even more shocking occurred. The undead priest spoke. Child of death, my lord has sent me to assist you in spreading death. The voice was odd, as if it wasn't being transmitted through the air, but instead directly into Lu Zhan's mind. But that wasn't the point. The point was, Child of Death was a terrible nickname. Clearly, he was the Child of Death. How do we spread death? Lu Zhan didn't waste time on pleasantries and asked directly. This creature had been sent by the undead lord to help him, or rather, to supervise him, to prevent him from slacking off. Lu Zhan could clearly sense it. His control over this undead priest was not as strong. It was loyal to the undead lord, not to him. This made Lu Zhan slightly displeased. It was as if he had become a mere tool. But despite his displeasure, he couldn't resist it. First, we must construct a death altar. The undead priest spoke again and opened the black book. In the air, images of various materials appeared. Around noon, Lu Zhan finally emerged from his room, feeling a headache coming on. He had thought that with his current strength, he could enjoy freedom and ease in this world. But he hadn't expected that he still couldn't do as he pleased. The undead priest had given him a week. The death altar had to be built within a week. Otherwise, the undead lord would reclaim all the abilities and even the class that had been bestowed upon him. This was completely unacceptable to him. Also, there was the matter of people. The undead priest had said that its only purpose was to manage the death altar and perform the death mass. And the death mass was conducted amongst the believers, a way to collect faith and provide it to the undead lord. The undead lord would also give things to the believers. But where did the believers come from, and how did he get them? The undead priest didn't care. Lu Zhan had to take care of that himself. Just then, Zhang Tianfu rushed over in a panic and said, "Brother Lu, you're out? Have you seen the forums? They're all talking about you." Lu Zhan raised an eyebrow, took out his phone, and glanced at it. The glaring headlines made him sneer inwardly. Crusade? Justice League? Demon Extermination Squad? He welcomed them to come. He needed to vent his frustrations anyway. So, Lu Zhan clicked on the new post button. I am Lu Zhan, level ranking number 1. The first mass murderer, and I hereby declare. The area within a 10-kilometer radius of former Donghai City is now the territory of my undead kingdom. Anyone who sets foot inside without permission will be executed without mercy. After posting, Lu Zhan said directly, "Afu, please bring Teacher Lu over here." A moment later, Lu Yong came before Lu Zhan, his face a mixture of expectation and fear. Lu Zhan naturally knew what the man was thinking and summoned Xiaoyao the undead. After a day of restoration, Xiaoyao was almost indistinguishable from when she was alive, save for her eyes. Her eyes had gone from black to green and were somewhat unsettling. But Lu Yong didn't mind at all and hugged Xiaoyao tightly with a look of happiness. This was completely morbid. Lu Zhan didn't care about these crazy things and said directly, "Teacher Lu, I want to establish an undead kingdom to protect humanity. What do you think?" Lu Yong was stunned. If Lu Zhan had said this before, he would have raised both hands in support and even helped him wholeheartedly. Because all along, he believed that Lu Zhan was the savior who would save the world. But after experiencing so much, his saintly heart had nearly cooled down. Now, he only wanted to live a good life with Xiaoyao. "Teacher Lu, I know you've been hurt deeply, but human beings are complex. There are good people and bad people," Lu Zhan said seriously. "You can't deny all of humanity because you've met some bad people. There are still many people among mankind who need us to save them. Let's not mention anyone else, but those children are innocent." These words were equivalent to pushing Lu Yong back into the saintly idiot pit that he had struggled so hard to climb out of. But Lu Zhan thought about it. He still felt that Lu Yong should be the one to handle the job of persuading people. Because whether it was Lu Zhan or Zhang Tianfu, saying things like saving people or helping humanity felt like acting, it felt fake. Only Lu Yong was truly sincere and from the heart. Such a person would make people believe him involuntarily. After listening to Lu Zhan's words, a thoughtful look appeared on Lu Yong's face. Now that Xiao Yao had been resurrected, his resentment had indeed been greatly reduced, but it was impossible for him to really return to his saintly state in a short time. Brother Lu, just tell me what you need me to do. Lu Zhan didn't say anything, took a piece of paper from his arms. It was precisely what the undead priest had given him. Afu, Teacher Lu, you should have both watched TV dramas, right? How do those organizations like churches recruit believers? And now I represent death. I need you to help me spread death and let more people believe in death. This is the doctrine of death for our undead kingdom. You can take it and study it. I hope that in the shortest possible time, you can at least get everyone still alive in this city to believe in death. Lu Yong took the piece of paper. The first sentence on it made him have a pensive look. Death is the beginning of eternal life. Brother Lu, are you trying to become a god? I used to read a novel about collecting faith and condensing divine personalities. I used to think it was nonsense, but now that this apocalypse has come, what's impossible? Brother Lu, if you want to become a god, we will definitely support you with all our strength. Hee, then let me be a divine envoy or something when the time comes. Zhang Tianfu was also full of imagination and said with an excited look. Chapter 113, Bloodshot Eye. Lu Zhan did not deny it. He couldn't tell them that he was just an employee. He would lose too much face if he said that. Moreover, one day in the future, he might really try to become a god. There was a saying that people's desires are unlimited, and Lu Zhan was no exception. Initially, Lu Zhan's goal was just to live. Later, it became to live well. As his strength grew stronger and stronger, his ambition inevitably expanded step by step. His current goal was not just to live well, but to live without being manipulated by anyone, not even by the undead lord. He had even made preparations to fight the undead lord head-on when the time came. Of course, these were just meaningless imaginings. After all, everything he had now was given to him by the undead lord. Now, he would absolutely obey any order from the undead lord unconditionally, obediently play his role as a tool man, and maybe if he performed well, the undead lord would let him go free. After thinking for a moment, Lu Zhan transferred 200,000 gold coins directly to Lu Yong. Teacher Lu, to make people believe in death, it's definitely not enough to just talk about it. Take these gold coins and spend them as you see fit. Don't save it for me. All I want is results, understand? Brother Lu, rest assured. Lu Yong nodded heavily. 200,000 gold coins were simply an unimaginable amount of money for him, and Brother Lu handed it over to him like that. All right, go and do your work. After giving his instructions, Lu Zhan dismissed the two. Then, he took out his phone and sent a message to that grave robber. The materials for the altar still had to be handled by him. For him, things that could be solved with money were not a problem. No money? Just kill them, whether it was killing monsters or killing people. After sending the message, Lu Zhan directly flapped his wings and flew out of the city. The great battle yesterday had already made him feel comfortable, but he did not expect that he would directly summon an undead priest to supervise him. This made him not even dare to use the undead summoning spell now. Who knew if the undead lord would send some more confidants to completely overwhelm him? Now, he urgently needed to find some monsters to kill to vent. Lingdong City. A large green forest. 8 people were standing outside the forest. The leading man was wearing a miner's lamp and holding an engineer's shovel. It was the grave robber Hu Luer. Hero rank monster, Bloodshot Eye. What do you think? Can you take care of it? Hu Luer asked as he ate something, looking nonchalant. The news about finding the Bloodshot Eye was only released yesterday, but in half a day, he had news. 100 gold coins was nothing to that mysterious boss, but it was definitely a huge sum of money for ordinary people. After getting the information, Hu Luer did not intend to sell it directly to that big boss. The information was worth 10,000 gold coins. Getting the Bloodshot Eye directly was worth 100,000 gold coins. As a smart person, Lure certainly wanted to take the 100,000 gold coins. The 7 people behind him were the team he had found. All 7 of these people were over level 10 and had passed their advancement missions. Moreover, the team configuration was reasonable. 4 of them were hidden professions, and the other 3 were also experts. This kind of strength was definitely one of the best among the current human beings, and it was the strongest team that Lure could find. The bounty for killing the Bloodshot Eye that Lure gave was 10,000 gold coins. He would make 90,000 gold coins with no investment. How great was that? Don't worry, 6th brother. My brothers and I have killed dozens of hero-rank monsters, if not hundreds. The team leader, Zhu Lu, was riding on a huge bear with his bare upper body wearing only a leather armor. His profession was not a beast master, but a druid. 1 hero-rank monster for 10,000 gold coins. This deal was simply a huge benefit. Zhu Lu was determined to get it. He had never heard of this Bloodshot Eye before, but it didn't matter. He was determined to get this 10,000 gold coins. No one could stop him. This was the confidence of a strong person. Okay, let's go in. Lure nodded, waved his hand, and said. He also thought that there was nothing wrong. As humans became stronger and stronger, these monsters were not enough to see. He was determined to get this 90,000 gold coins. So, a group of 8 people walked into the forest valiantly. Half an hour later, 1 kilometer away from the forest, a person crawled out of the ground in a very embarrassed state, breathing the air heavily, his eyes full of fear. Dead. All dead. The 7 people who claimed to be experts were directly wiped out. In just half an hour, they had not even seen the face of the Bloodshot Eye. This forest was terrible. If he had not obtained a spring elixir that could fully recover his health as long as he was not dead, he would have become a corpse in this wave. Lure did not hesitate to take out his phone to send a message. Although 100,000 gold coins was tempting, life was more important. He would just steadily take the 10,000 gold coins. As for whether that big brother had the ability to walk out of this forest, it was none of his business. It was just a pity. If he died, there would be no more big spenders. Thinking of this, Lure directly put away his phone. If that was the case, then he would first collect all the materials sent by that big brother and complete this big deal first. Anyway, this Bloodshot Eye was here and could not run away. Early in the morning, when Zhan opened the window, he saw the city's big square. Everyone was called together. Liu Yong was standing high on the platform, motionless. When the scene quieted down, he slowly said, "Death is the beginning of eternal life. This person is not bad. We can focus on training him." Next to Zhan, the figure of the death priest suddenly appeared and said lightly. Zhan did not speak, and a trace of displeasure flashed in his eyes. This guy could freely enter and exit his undead space without his permission, which was simply a slap in the face to him. Do your best to help the Lord, and the Lord will not treat anyone who has made contributions badly. The death priest seemed to have noticed Zhan's anger and said, "You can rest assured that I am just a dog of the Lord, and you are the spokesperson of the Lord. When the Lord reigns over the world in the future, your position will be far above me, and you can treat me however you want." Reign over the world? Zhan accurately caught these 4 words and asked directly, "What is going on with this apocalypse?" "I don't know." The death priest shook his head. "I was only created by the Lord. The only purpose of my existence is to assist you. I know nothing else." "How strong is the Lord?" "That's not something you can speculate about. Since he's so strong, why doesn't he directly descend to this world?" "That's not something you can speculate about. Are there other gods fighting against the Lord?" "That's not something you can speculate about." If he could, Zhan could not wait to directly sacrifice this guy to Unit 1. Chapter 114. Setting out on a journey. You don't need to dwell on these things. Just follow Lord Monarch's instructions step by step. This world is destined to belong to us, the dead. The death priest spoke in a low tone. "How is the material preparation going?" "Only 3 days left." "Relax." Zhan replied impatiently. "Very well then." The death priest nodded and vanished from the spot, returning to the undead space. Just then, Zhan felt his phone vibrate. He took it out and saw a message from Bai Hu. "Bai Hu, big brother, materials are all gathered. Also, I have info on the Eye of Gore, but I'm afraid you'll have to come in person." That thing's too strong for me to handle. So fast? Zhan was slightly surprised. This guy was truly capable. No wonder he was a Tomb Raider. Lonely Invincible. Send me the location. 3 seconds later. Location information appeared on Zhan's phone. This system was remarkably user-friendly. Adding friends allowed direct location sharing, a boon for the directionally challenged. Opening the location, Zhan frowned. Almost 2,000 kilometers away. And there were no planes these days. How was he supposed to get there? If he ran at full speed, it wouldn't take too long. But he was the premier strongman of humankind. Running there himself? It was far too degrading. After a moment's thought, Zhan roared. Old Black, get your ass over here. Woof woof woof. I'm busy, no time. A chorus of barking echoed from the city center. Beilao and Dewang, the tiger, had become unlikely friends after initially fighting like cats and dogs, from constantly brawling to now being shoulder-to-shoulder buddies. As for what they were currently doing, Zhan had heard rumors. Something about optimizing breeding. Zhan narrowed his eyes and said calmly, I'm counting to 3. 1. The instant the word 1 left his lips, a bolt of lightning shot out from the city center and landed in front of Zhan's window. Woof. What do you want? Beilao grumbled, but obedience was still deeply ingrained. Not only was Zhan the boss of its boss, but Zhan's current strength was also terrifying to both it and Dewang. In just a few short days, Zhan had been going out to kill monsters at every opportunity, not only leveling up to level 19, but also upgrading all the undead, except for the dragon to hero rank. A full 55 hero rank monsters, and the kind that Zhan carefully selected, each one a mini-boss at this stage. His 3 main attributes were now close to 1,000. It was a terrifying power, but the dragon undead was proving to be a major headache. Not being able to fly directly weakened it by 80%. Its massive size meant it could only crawl on the ground, which was just pitiful, although its agility was also high. But agility was relative to size. The dragon's agility on its enormous body could be summed up in 4 words. Bulky and sluggish. In combat, it was only useful as a meat shield. Zhan had initially wanted to upgrade it to hero rank as well, but quickly discovered it was impossible to sacrifice enough to do it. Dozens of undead disappeared without a ripple, just pure waste. For a moment, Zhan even considered sacrificing it to one, which might allow one to break through the hero rank bottleneck. I need you to take me on a trip. Zhan jumped out the window and landed firmly on Beilao back. Woof woof woof. Trip? No, no, no. Beilao shook its head vigorously. There will be food. Zhan said casually. Woof woof woof. Let's go, let's go. Point the way. Quick, quick. Beilao barked frantically. Breeding was nothing compared to food. Zhan pointed in a direction, and with a whoosh sound, a bolt of lightning disappeared on the spot. Beilao was surrounded by lightning, and its speed when flying at full speed was extremely fast, not inferior to the planes of pre-apocalypse days. Zhan stood up directly on its back, spreading his arms wide as the wind rushed against him. At the same time, the lightning on Beilao's body was constantly bombarding him. The double assault of wind and electricity had already torn Zhan's clothes, leaving him completely naked. Even with his physique, he felt waves of stinging pain. But this feeling was damn good. Sometimes, pain was a form of pleasure. Outside the forest, Hulur sat on a stool with an umbrella next to him, his initial weapon, the Vajra umbrella. Although it had been a few days, his mind still involuntarily flashed back to that tragic experience when he reached this place. He had made up his mind that he wouldn't go inside once that big brother arrived. But it was a pity. If that big brother died, there wouldn't be such a good sucker anymore. He had made at least 30,000 gold coins in profit from that last batch of materials alone. It was just too damn good. Just then, a terrifying aura suddenly approached at an incredible speed. Hulur quickly stood up, looking terrified, fearing he would have to escape underground in the next second. But before he could act, the aura had already locked onto him. Hulur was certain that the slightest movement would bring about a devastating blow. He only had one spring returning pill left. A moment later, with a boom, the terrifying aura landed directly on the ground. A dog? Hulur was stunned at first. Then he saw a naked man jump off the dog's back. Lu Zhan calmly took out a new set of clothes from his storage ring and walked toward Huluer. Bei Laohe had taken only 3 hours to cover the nearly 2,000 kilometers. But in Lu Zhan's opinion, it was still a bit slow. It seemed like the matter of the teleportation array should be put on the agenda. To build a teleportation array, he first needed to get the array blueprint. And in Lu Zhan's memory, the first teleportation array blueprint appeared in a dungeon. After all, this thing was a vital strategic asset, and the various organizations fought fiercely for it. So the situation was extremely chaotic, and even minor figures like Lu Zhan had heard of it. "Are you Bai Hu?" When he reached the man, Lu Zhan had already put on his clothes. This person had a compass hanging around his waist, a uniquely shaped umbrella in his hand, a backpack on his back, and a military shovel hanging by his side. He looked exactly like the legendary Tomb Raider. He had sent a message to this guy before setting out, telling him to wait here. "That's right, big brother. I'm Bai Hu. Big brother, are you lonely invincible?" Huluer looked nervous. To be honest, before the apocalypse, he was someone who specialized in this kind of work. He had seen all kinds of people, big shots from both the right and wrong sides. As for after the apocalypse, although Tomb Raider wasn't a main combat class, its combat power was not weak either. At least Huluer didn't think he was weaker than those hidden class powerhouses. But at this moment, he really felt like something out of a web novel. That feeling of nervousness when meeting a towering figure made him tense and tremble. Chapter 115. Bloodthirsty Quadruped Serpents. Although the apocalypse had only been going on for a short time, Lu Zhan's inner self and temperament had undergone earth-shattering changes. This came from strength and slaughter. Even Bei Laohe was somewhat fearful of Lu Zhan, let alone this Huluer. He couldn't possibly be that strong. Is the Eye of Gore inside? Lu Zhan didn't waste any words and asked directly. "Yes, big brother. This forest is the Eye of Gore's lair." Huluer replied quickly. Originally, he wanted to ask for money upon meeting, but now he didn't dare to open his mouth. "Let's go. Lead the way. I'll give you the money once I get the item," Lu Zhan said. "Ah." Huluer was dumbfounded. "Bro, big brother, can I not go in?" "No, you have to go in." Lu Zhan shook his head. "Bro, let me be honest with you. It's not that I don't want to go in, but it's really dangerous inside. Just a few days ago, I gathered a group of people and went in. It was too damn tragic. Everyone was wiped out, and only I managed to escape. The scariest part is that we didn't even see the shadow of the Eye of Gore. Bro, I think you should gather more people. Someone will brave danger for enough reward. Find a few hundred or 1,000 people and just cut down this forest." According to Huluer's understanding, there was only one way to take down the Eye of Gore. That was to pile up human lives and push the forest down by force. Anyway, this big boss had plenty of money. In this apocalypse, human lives were the least valuable things. "No need. Just the two of us are going in." Lu Zhan shook his head and said. He had heard of the Eye of Gore in his previous life. It was indeed strong, but it was only a so-so. As long as it wasn't a super clan like dragons or phoenixes, Lu Zhan had nothing to fear these days. "Bro, you're my real bro. I don't dare go in to die." Huluer was about to cry. "Old Black, pick him up and let's go." Lu Zhan directly climbed back onto Bei Laohe. Huluer felt a chill in his heart and was about to burrow into the ground. But the next second, his body was out of his control. He raised his hand and saw a mouthful of sharp teeth. Huluer went numb all over, and his limbs were paralyzed. He couldn't move anymore. Bei Laohe, with Huluer in its mouth, stepped directly into the forest ahead. As soon as they entered, Lu Zhan smelled a strong scent of blood. "Big brother, be careful." Huluer, in Bei Laohe's mouth, cried out sharply. He still remembered it clearly. When they came in, they were attacked by more than a dozen monsters. Sure enough, from all directions, a large number of monsters shot toward them. These monsters were all blood red, shaped like giant snakes, each one as thick as a bowl, but not long, the longest being no more than 1 meter. Most peculiar of all, they had 4 feet under their bodies. Long-legged snakes looked extremely terrifying. These things were the normal form of the Eye of Gore, the bloodthirsty quadruped serpents. Huluer closed his eyes, completely despairing. He was doomed this time. These things were extremely poisonous. If you got bitten, you would bleed nonstop. That previous 7-man team had bled to death, which was horrible. But in an instant, Hulur felt a terrifying energy erupt around him, followed by the scent of scorching flesh filling the air. What happened? With this question, Hulur opened his eyes and saw the corpses of bloodthirsty quadruped serpents all over the ground, with traces of lightning. Woof woof woof, I hate snakes the most. They're so damn disgusting. Beilao He spat Hulur out on the ground, barking in dissatisfaction. Hulur shuddered. He could still see the terrifying meaning of lightning on the big black dog. He looked incredibly surprised. So, these snakes were all electrocuted to death by this big black dog? Instant kill? Being a mount and already being so strong? How strong would that big brother be? Thinking of this, Hulur quickly stepped forward and said to Zhan on the dog's back, "Big brother, let's go. I'll lead the way for you." As a lone ranger, he deeply knew how dangerous it was to be alone in this apocalypse. He had escaped death by luck many times, but luck couldn't always favor him. So he also wanted to find a thigh to hug. But to be honest, Hulur was ambitious. Even that Huang Shengren wasn't to his liking. But at this moment, Hulur knew he had found the thigh he had been longing for. This wealth and this strength were definitely a super thigh. Now was the time to hug it. Okay, let's go. Zhan nodded and said. He brought this Hulur in to show his dominance and recruit him as a subordinate in the invisible. He didn't care about these before when he was a lone ranger. But now, he wanted to spread faith and build an undead kingdom. He could not do it by going solo. What was the most important? Of course, it was talent. Zhan had to recruit talent in all aspects. This Hulur was one of his goals. Bringing this person under his command meant he could get materials in the future without paying, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Hulur carefully walked ahead, and Beilao He carried Zhan behind, step by step toward the depths of the forest. On the way, bloodthirsty quadruped serpents constantly jumped out from all around. At first, Hulur was scared, but each time, the black dog behind him accurately shot down all the snakes without exception. Gradually, Hulur's courage grew, and he even started chatting. "Big brother, my real name is Hulur. What's your name?" Zhan. "Hello, Master Lu. Call me Brother Lu." "Okay, Brother Lu. Brother Lu, are you a hidden class too?" "I'm a beast tamer. Can't you tell?" "I can tell, Brother Lu. Your spirit beast is so strong." "Woof woof woof. Who is his spirit beast?" "You are. Your whole family is." Beilao He was unhappy and barked. But the next second, Zhan slapped it on the head and said, "This dog is disobedient. You have to beat it. Beat it hard. Lure, understand?" "Understood, understood." Hulur nodded, and it didn't matter if he was a real beast tamer or not. Anyway, being able to make this big black dog obey meant Brother Lu's strength couldn't be weak. Hiss! Just then, a scream suddenly rang out. Then, a dozen figures jumped out of the forest together, and Hulur was so frightened that he hid directly next to the big black dog. "Woof woof woof, there are so many bugs. They don't taste good either." Beilao He roared in dissatisfaction. With its current status, eating these ordinary monsters was degrading. In an instant, lightning erupted. Bloodthirsty quadruped serpents fell to the ground with a charred smell. "Too strong," Hulur exclaimed. But the next second, a blood-red figure suddenly descended from the sky and landed directly on Zhan. "Brother Lu, be careful." Hulur's expression changed drastically. But it was too late. This thing was even bigger than the quadruped serpents. Most terrifyingly, it had a pair of blood-red wings. It was clearly an elite-level monster. This thing opened its bloody mouth, which was densely packed with a large number of teeth, and then swallowed Zhan's entire head, followed by a crack sound. Chapter 116. An Old Acquaintance and the Eye of Gore. Crack! A large number of teeth fell directly from the snake's mouth, clattering to the ground. This thing was the elite-level blood-winged feather serpent. It was confused. How did it feel like it was hurting when it bit down? Damn it, that's disgusting. A sword suddenly appeared in Zhan's hand. He swung it toward the sky, cutting the blood-winged feather serpent in half at the waist. After throwing the snake head down, Zhan's face kept making sizzle sounds. The blood-winged feather serpent's venom was trying to corrode Zhan, but Zhan's physique was too high to corrode. "Woof woof woof, this is good. It tastes good." Bei Lao He swallowed the snake head cleanly. As for the body, it didn't want it. It despised it. Hu Luer on the side was completely dumbfounded. What were these things? Lu Zhan took out a towel and water from his storage space and cleaned his head. But at this moment, he suddenly sensed two powerful energy fluctuations ahead. His heart skipped a beat. One of them must be the hero rank Eye of Gore. But who was the other one? A professional or a monster? Someone was trying to snatch it halfway. Old Black, go full speed ahead. Pick up this guy. Just don't let him die. Lu Zhan jumped onto Bei Lao He's back and said directly. Originally, he was just coming here to relax, so he chose to walk slowly. But this forest was quite large. Walking slowly would take about half an hour. It would be a waste if the Eye of Gore was killed. Bei Lao He didn't waste any words. Before Hu Luer could react, it picked him up directly. Then, lightning formed a ball, completely enveloping the surroundings. The next second, the lightning ball flew out at an extremely high speed. All the trees and monsters along the way were destroyed without exception. Aeawea. Hu Luer was almost out of his mind. He closed his eyes and screamed all the way. It was too damn exciting. His little heart couldn't bear it. Bei Lao He's control of lightning was extremely strong, enveloping Hu Luer in lightning without hurting him at all. After a minute, the scenery around suddenly turned blood red, as if entering a barrier. Stop. Lu Zhan frowned and said. In an instant, the lightning ball around Bei Lao He dissipated, standing firmly on the ground, and then it spat Hu Luer on the ground. It should be here soon. Be careful. Lu Zhan said. He could already sense the two powerful energies not far away. Most importantly, this blood color was one of the Eye of Gore's skills. It was called the Blood Domain. Inside this domain, the Eye of Gore and its clansmen had all attributes increased by 10%, while others entering the domain had all attributes reduced by 20%. Lu Zhan opened his attributes and saw that his attributes had decreased across the board. So, he directly summoned 1 and 2, right and left guardians. In this situation, even Lu Zhan couldn't be too careless. After all, there was a small chance of capsizing in a ditch. Woof woof woof, it's really uncomfortable here. Bei Lao He also shook his body, looking very uncomfortable. Hu Luer's face was even paler, and he even felt it difficult to breathe. But after seeing the two black figures next to Lu Zhan, he looked shocked and guessed what class that big brother was. Let's go and see. Ready? Lu Zhan patted the dog's head and said. Bei Lao He was also very cautious, pacing forward. After a while, an open space appeared in front of them, and in the open space, a great battle was taking place. In the center of the battlefield, a middle-aged man was wielding a blood-colored broadsword, shirtless. Countless snake-like creatures were surrounding him, at least 30 or 40 elite blood-winged feather serpents. As for the ordinary bloodthirsty quadruped serpents, they were countless. However, so many monsters were being slaughtered by the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was covered in wounds, and most terrifyingly, those wounds seemed to have suction, constantly absorbing blood from the surroundings into his body. These bloods were like stimulants. The more the man absorbed, the more ferocious he killed. It was hard to imagine. In the Eye of Gore's blood domain, humans could kill in all directions, as if this man was the master of this domain. But not far away. A terrifying monster was floating in the air. This monster's body was even larger than the blood-winged feather serpents. It didn't have those wings, but it had a blood-red eye on its head, emitting a strong bloody aura. This blood domain was maintained by this eye. This monster was the absolute king of this forest. It was Lu Zhan's target, the Eye of Gore. But Lu Zhan didn't focus on the Eye of Gore. Instead, he looked at the middle-aged man in surprise. He knew this man. Blood Saber ancestor Zhan. Wasn't this guy dead in Jeju village? No wonder. Blood Saber ancestor was the ancestor of playing with blood. Being in this blood domain was like a fish in water. It seemed this guy's goal was also the Eye of Gore. Since he had a question, Lu Zhan directly opened his mouth and asked loudly, Zhan, what are you doing here? As he spoke, the undead 1 and 2 were already rushing towards the Eye of Gore. Just a hero rank Eye of Gore. Leaving it to 1 and 2 was not a big problem. In the center of the battlefield, that middle-aged man was Zhan. Hearing the sound, his body shook. He turned his head and saw Lu Zhan on the dog's back. In an instant, Jia Zheng's blood gas erupted again, emitting an incomparably terrifying aura, like a bloody demon, staring at Lu Zhan and roaring. Lu Zhan, give me back my daughter's life. After roaring, he simply ignored everything and turned into a streak of blood, shooting towards Lu Zhan. These days, he had been thinking about killing Lu Zhan almost every moment. This had become his only goal for survival. But that Lu Zhan was too strong. He was simply looking for death. So, guided by the magical blood knife in his hand, his strength improved rapidly. All of this was the effect of blood. The blood knife made him absorb blood everywhere, human blood, monster blood, mutated beast blood, all of them. And the Eye of Gore's blood was his greatest goal. According to the blood knife, as long as he could swallow the Eye of Gore's blood, his strength would skyrocket. At that time, he would have the confidence to find Lu Zhan to avenge his daughter. But at this moment, seeing Lu Zhan, his only remaining sanity was completely filled with hatred. He didn't care about strength and rushed up, desperate to kill Lu Zhan. Chapter 117. Who is Lu Zhan? Huh. Lu Zhan frowned, a bit confused by the situation. What the hell did "give me back my daughter's life" mean? But in the blink of an eye, Jia Zhang was already in front of him. The blood saber swung down from above, ruthlessly cleaving, the terrifying blood energy almost engulfing Lu Zhan. Courting death. Lu Zhan snorted coldly. Even if you were one of the top combatants of humanity in the past life, you still have to kneel before me. Lu Zhan didn't dodge or evade, but directly blasted out a punch at the blood saber. This level of combat couldn't use those trashy swords. It was better to just use his fists, straight and to the point. With a boom, the fist and saber collided in the air. Lu Zhan felt a surge of blood energy. A strange magic power came from the blood saber, trying to absorb his blood and chi. The next second, he shook his whole body, and the tumbling blood and chi calmed down. Want to suck my blood? Dream on. Lu Zhan suddenly exerted force, and Jia Zhang, holding the saber, flew out. His strength was close to 1,000. No matter how strong Jia Zhang was, his strength would at most be 500. Even with that strange blood saber, it was impossible for him to beat Lu Zhan. Old Black, clean up these little snakes. Don't touch the big snake. Leave it to 1 and 2. As for this guy, I'll play with him personally. Lu Zhan jumped off the dog's back and chased after Jia Zhang, who had flown out. Since you want to fight, I'll play with you. These days, there were few humans who could fight Lu Zhan. This Jia Zhang could make him use 5 or 6 points of force to stretch his muscles, which was not bad. In an instant, Lu Zhan was already next to Jia Zhang, reaching out and grabbing the other's arm, throwing it away. With a boom, Jia Zhang crashed heavily into a tree, directly breaking a big tree. Is that it? Lu Zhan laughed loudly and flew out again. But the next second, Jia Zhang's body had disappeared. He saw this guy pouncing towards the monster group in a dog-like pose, and then the blood saber directly inserted into the ground. The blood on the ground was being sucked into the blood saber at an extremely fast speed and entered Jia Zhang's body. In an instant, this Jia Zhang was resurrected with full health, even more valiant. Lu Zhan, pay with your life. He shouted and slashed the saber into the air. As this saber was slashed out, the surrounding blood and chi all condensing into a huge blood saber, chopping down on Lu Zhan's head. This was his ultimate move, Blood Fiend Saber Slash. Interesting. Looking at the terrifying blood saber, Lu Zhan didn't panic at all. He said calmly, "In that case, I'll also use a skill, Serious Punch." As soon as the words fell, Lu Zhan flew up into the sky and punched out at the blood saber again. This punch used 8 points of force. With a boom, Lu Zhan's fist hit the blood saber. The blood saber instantly collapsed, and a large amount of blood scattered on the ground. But Jia Zhang shouted loudly, and those bloods directly condensed into a blood saber on the ground, slashing towards Lu Zhan from above. Just as this saber was about to hit, Lu Zhan's figure directly disappeared on the spot, rushing towards Jia Zhang like a cannonball. Jia Zhang was fully controlling the blood saber, thinking that this unexpected saber would definitely hit the opponent, but he completely underestimated Lu Zhan's agility. Lu Zhan's speed was at its peak. It was like teleportation in his eyes. With a crack, Lu Zhan's big hand directly grabbed Jia Zheng's neck and pressed him to the ground. Jia Zheng struggled hard, but couldn't break free. The more he couldn't break free, the redder his eyes became. After a while, Jia Zheng's eyes were almost red and black. Lu Zhan could clearly feel that the other's strength seemed to be constantly increasing. Frowning, Lu Zhan looked at the knife in this guy's hand. This thing seemed to have a strange magic power. After thinking about it, Lu Zhan kicked the handle of the knife, kicking it out of Jia Zheng's hand. As soon as the knife left his hand, the blood color in Jia Zheng's eyes quickly faded, returning to the original color. But this guy's eyes were still full of hatred towards Lu Zhan, the kind of endless hatred. "I didn't kill your daughter," Lu Zhan said calmly. Jia Zheng was stunned, but soon snorted coldly, expressing that he didn't believe it at all. He closed his eyes and said despairingly, "Kill me. It's useless. I can't avenge my daughter. In that case, send me to see Ying. Haven't you been looking at your phone recently?" Lu Zhan directly released Jia Zheng's neck, but his body was directly blocking between the other party and the knife. He could see it. Most of the Blood Saber ancestor's strength came from the Blood Saber. Without the Blood Saber, this Jia Zheng was just an ordinary powerhouse, which Lu Zhan could easily handle with one hand. This Jia Zheng was a super top combatant. It would be a pity to kill him. Jia Zheng closed his eyes, motionless, and had no intention of answering at all. "Luer, come here." Lu Zhan waved towards Hu Luer, who was trembling behind a distant tree. Hu Luer trembled and walked over. Just now, he had 10,000 thoughts of escaping, but he didn't act in the end. On the one hand, he hadn't gotten the money yet. On the other hand, he always felt that Lu Zhan was staring at him. If he ran, he was afraid that he would be directly hacked to death in the next second. In fact, his feeling was right. This Hu Luer had been targeted by Lu Zhan, so how could he let him run away? When Hu Luer walked next to him, Lu Zhan directly asked, "Luer, tell this uncle what kind of person I, Lu Zhan, am?" Hu Luer only felt unprecedented tension, as if he was facing the director of education in elementary school, afraid of being scolded if he answered a word wrong. The scariest thing was that now it was more than just being scolded, but being hacked. What kind of person was Lu Zhan? The most famous person in the world these days, and notoriously. Hu Luer couldn't imagine that his financier would be this big devil. "You, uncle." Hu Luer thought for a while before carefully opening his mouth. "Brother Lu is a straightforward, daring, handsome, and powerful. Get to the point. Just read the title of the forum. Don't miss a word." Lu Zhan frowned and said coldly, "Lu Zhan, a bloodthirsty devil who designed to slaughter hundreds of people." Hu Luer closed his eyes and finished in one breath. "Well said." Lu Zhan said expressionlessly. "Jia Zheng, did you hear that? I, Lu Zhan, am a bloodthirsty devil who has killed countless people. What is your daughter? If I killed her, would I have to deny it?" Jia Zheng's eyelids twitched slightly. After a while, he took out his phone and opened the forum. These days, there were only two words in his mind: revenge. He couldn't possibly waste time on the forum. Then, he saw the hottest post, which was exactly what Hu Luer said. Besides this, there were a whole dozen posts with tens of thousands of discussions about Lu Zhan. This at least proved that the people Lu Zhan had killed had indeed angered the heavens. Chapter 118. Red, Blood's Elegy. How about it? Do I look like the kind of person who needs to lie to you? Lu Zhan looked at Jia Zheng and said calmly. Jia Zheng held his phone, his face pale, recalling the various scenes at the time. There were indeed many wrong things. The Blood Saber seemed to have a strange magic power, giving him powerful strength, but also affected his mind to some extent. At that time, he saw his daughter's death, and his brain was instantly filled with huge grief and hatred, almost losing the reason to think and eager to find an enemy. As a result, Lu Zhan directly appeared in his mind. Because Lu Zhan was the only person he could think of at the time who had the possibility and strength to slaughter the village. But now that the Blood Saber was out of his hand, he was not completely awake, but he had recovered a lot of sanity. After thinking about it carefully, there were indeed many unreasonable things. Then who was it? Jia Zheng's face was pale, and the phone in his hand fell directly to the ground. He seemed to be 10 years older in an instant. "I know who it is and can take you to avenge it," Lu Zhan said. That night, a 7-person team came and slaughtered everyone. If my strength wasn't strong, I would have died. I killed 2 of them. If you had looked carefully at the time, you should have seen 2 unknown corpses. I thought you were also killed by them. I didn't expect you to be still alive. I went out that night. Jia Zheng's face was full of pain, and the scene of that night kept flashing back in his mind. He had to waver. Ying, who killed her? I don't know his name, only his title. He's called Night Emperor. His strength is very strong, or he couldn't have escaped from me that night. Zhan said. He also has 4 brothers, each of whom is very strong. You can't avenge yourself alone. This was not fooling the other party. The Night Emperor of the future would definitely not be weaker than the Blood Saber ancestor. In the night, he was definitely stronger than the Blood Saber ancestor. Not to mention that the Night Emperor also had a whole Night Empire, with countless powerful subordinates. Jia Zheng was silent for a moment before saying, "What do you want me to do?" Since the other party was a bloodthirsty devil, there must be a purpose for not killing him. Do you believe in death? Zhan looked at the other party and said, "Believe in death?" Jia Zheng was stunned and said confusedly, "Can believing in death resurrect my daughter?" "It can resurrect half of it," Zhan said. "Resurrect half of it?" Jia Zheng was completely dumbfounded. "Is your daughter's body still there?" Zhan asked. He thought of Lu Yong. This Jia Zheng, like Lu Yong, was a person who valued love extremely. Even this Jia Zheng was a little obsessed, as if his daughter was everything to him. If he could really be resurrected, then he could definitely become a staunch fan of death. Unfortunately, he could only resurrect the body, not the soul. Thinking of this, he suddenly had a whimsical idea. After a person died, where did the soul go? Did it also belong to that undead monarch? If possible, discuss it with that big shot. If he could get a real resurrection, then recruiting believers would be a matter of minutes. "I buried the body. What do you want to do?" Jia Zheng said. "Simply put, I can resurrect your daughter's body and keep your daughter's body young forever, but I can't do anything about the soul. As for whether you want to, it's up to you." Zhan didn't try to sell anything and said directly. Not everyone could accept this kind of thing. Sure enough, Jia Zheng's face moved first, and then he slowly shook his head. "Resurrecting the body? Then Ying is no longer Ying. As long as you can help me avenge, I, Jia Zheng, will be your dog in the future." "No problem, then you can follow me first." Zhan nodded. After he finished speaking, he picked up the blood saber. The blood saber was like scrap iron in his hands, and he couldn't see anything special about it. But when he handed it to Jia Zheng's body suddenly burst out with a powerful energy, and his eyes flashed with a trace of blood red, but it quickly suppressed it. "Your class is interesting." Zhan dared to return the blood saber to the other party, so naturally he wasn't afraid of anything. "My initial class was called Blood Saber Envoy, and now I have advanced to Blood Saber Wielder." Jia Zheng suppressed the bloodthirsty impulse and said, "This blood saber seems to have consciousness and is constantly leading me to absorb blood. The more I absorb, the stronger I become. At the same time, it will amplify all the desires and thoughts in my heart." Speaking of the last, Jia Zheng's eyes turned blood red again, full of resentment. "Night Emperor, is it?" Roar. But at this moment, a very tragic roar suddenly rang out, followed by a rumbling sound, as if something had fallen directly to the ground. The next second, the surrounding blood color disappeared in an instant, restoring the original green of the forest. The Eye of Gore, under the combined attack of 1 and 2, finally couldn't hold on and died. As for those little snakes, they had long been killed cleanly by Bei Lao He. Zhan's heart was excited. He had been looking forward to this sword for a long time, and he could be sure that this was definitely the first red equipment in the world. Walking next to the corpse of the Eye of Gore, there were 3 balls floating above it. One of them was in the shape of a drop of blood. Zhan picked it up and broke it without hesitation. Essence blood of the Eye of Gore. A very special material. I don't know what it's used for. Finally got it. Zhan rarely showed a smile on his face. He couldn't even bother to look at the remaining 2 balls. He took out the blueprint and all the materials eagerly. Then he moved his mind. The system's voice came from his mind. Detected that the materials for the blueprint blood's elegy are collected. Do you want to synthesize? Synthesize, Zhan said in his heart. The next second, All the materials turned into light and entered the blueprint. Then, a blood-red sword slowly emerged on the blueprint. The whole process lasted a full 3 minutes. This sword was completely revealed. Lu Zhan grabbed the hilt. His first feeling was lightness. Unlike Lu Yong's giant sword, this was a rapier, which suited Lu Zhan's heart. Lu Zhan's class in the previous life was Spirit Swordsman, who used this light rapier. With a nervous mood, Lu Zhan looked at its attributes. Blood's Elegy. Rank, Red. Equipment requirements. Level 15, Strength 300, Agility 500, Strength plus 300, Agility plus 400. A certain chance to trigger a bleeding effect when hitting an enemy. The damage is determined by strength. Skill, Blood Explosion. After release, it will directly detonate the blood in the enemy's body. The damage is determined by the difference in agility between the two sides. The greater the difference, the higher the damage. Skill, Blood Frenzy. After opening the skill, Blood's Elegy will continue to absorb the blood of the holder and provide the holder with all attribute bonuses. The more blood absorbed, the higher the attribute bonus. Chapter 119, Fragment of Deathwing. Good sword. From now on, call me Blood Swordsman. Lu Zhan laughed and thrust out his sword, striking a rather handsome pose. He looked at Hu Luer and Jia Zhang and said, "What do you think? Cool or not?" It had to be said. Lu Zhan was still a very vain person. After all, he was a young man. Cool, cool, cool. Blood Swordsman is super cool. Hu Luer quickly delivered a wave of flattery. As for Jia Zhang, his expression changed slightly. The blood saber in his hand trembled slightly, emitting a trace of hostility. At the same time, Lu Zhan also felt the blood's elegy in his hand exude an extremely sharp aura. Artifacts had spirits. The blood saber in Jia Zhang's hand could affect the master's mind, which was obviously very evil and naturally had a certain aura. And blood's elegy was a red weapon. Although it wouldn't give birth to a sword spirit, it also had its own aura. In addition, both were blood-based weapons, so they would naturally compete with each other when they met. Humph! Lu Zhan snorted coldly, and the blood's elegy in his hand instantly quieted down. As for Jia Zhang, it wasn't so easy. His eyes flashed red from time to time. Lu Zhan even suspected that the reason why this guy slaughtered the city in the previous life was that he was controlled by the blood saber. Blood saber devouring the master. It sounded outrageous, but in this era, nothing was impossible. Give it to me. Lu Zhan directly took the blood saber from Jia Zhang's hand, then threw it on the ground and stepped on it. Being a weapon, what are you doing? The blood saber struggled constantly under Lu Zhan's feet and even burst out with bursts of blood. But Lu Zhan stood still and even stomped heavily, and the ground instantly collapsed, burying the blood saber underground. This time, the blood saber finally became honest and motionless. If you can't even control your own weapon, what are you going to use to avenge? Lu Zhan kicked the blood saber to Jia Zhang and said. Jia Zhang caught the saber. In an instant, the blood saber showed signs of vibrating again, and a strong hatred rose in his heart. He suddenly thought of what Lu Zhan said, that everything he had done along the way seemed to be guided by this blood saber. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the hatred in his heart, he snorted coldly. Are you the master, or am I the master? If you do it again, I'd rather bury you directly in the soil and never use you again. After saying this, the blood saber did calm down, and although the hatred was still in Jia Zhang's heart, there was a trace of clarity in his mind. Seeing this scene, Lu Zhan also sighed in his heart. It seemed that these hidden classes were not so easy to get. Although they were extremely powerful, there were many disadvantages. East Sea. Returning with Hu Luer and Jia Zhang naturally couldn't let Bei Lao He go at full speed. But both of them were strong, and their speed wasn't slow. The group spent most of the day. Back in the city, Lu Zhan asked Zhang Tianfu to arrange accommodation for the two. Oh, it's you. You're still alive? Seeing Jia Zhang, Zhang Tianfu was quite surprised. Where did you hide that night? I almost lost my life. Those guys were really strong. Fortunately, Brother Lu was stronger. Zhang Tianfu's words dispelled the last trace of doubt in Jia Zhang's heart. Lu Zhan's encounter with him was an accident, so it was impossible to collude with Zhang Tianfu in advance. After the few people left, Lu Zhan returned to his room. Now, Zhang Tianfu, Lu Yong, and these who lure in Jia Zheng. They could be considered the 4 generals under his command. Among the 4, Jia Zheng's combat power was comparable to the human emperor. Lu Yong could fight against the heavenly king in the berserk state, and Zhang Tianfu and Hu Luer, although they were not combatants, had great uses. This undead kingdom could be considered to be taking shape. After thinking for a while, Lu Zhan summoned the undead priest. Then, a large pile of materials needed for the altar appeared in the room. You did a good job. The undead priest nodded with satisfaction, waved his staff, and then knelt down directly, extremely piously. The next second, a very small crack appeared in the air, and an extremely rich death aura emanated from it. At this moment, Lu Zhan's face turned pale instantly, and he couldn't help trembling. He even had the urge to kneel. Fortunately, the crack appeared for a moment and then disappeared, and from it, 3 gray-black things fell out. Lu Zhan was very familiar with this thing. There were 2 pieces in his storage ring. Fragment of Death Wing. The undead priest stood up from the ground, picked up the fragments, and said, "When you see Lord Monarch, you must kneel. This is the first time. You will not be punished, but there will be no next time. This is the reward from Lord Monarch." After speaking, he handed the 3 fragments to Lu Zhan. Lu Zhan took the fragments, and he wasn't excited. There were still 5 pieces missing. It was still early. It would be better to give him a few red equipment. At the same time, his mind was running fast. The aura just now was indeed extremely terrifying, but it was just an aura. This made him have to think a little. Perhaps that trace of the crack was the limit of the undead monarch. This wasn't his random guess. First of all, it was very clear. That was, the so-called gods couldn't do whatever they wanted in this world, and even had great restrictions, or he would have died God knows how many times. That was to say, that undead monarch might not be able to do anything to him at the moment. As for this undead priest, no matter how strong he was just a hero-rank undead. He could destroy him in minutes. Of course, this was just his guess. He couldn't jump up and destroy this undead priest now. Besides, this was a good opportunity to get wool. He could completely treat the undead monarch as a task issuer, complete the task, and get rewards. He had to get the death wing in his hand. Thinking of this, Lu Zhan looked at the undead priest with a smile and said, "Can you contact Lord Monarch?" "Of course. I am transformed from a hair on Lord Monarch's body." The undead priest looked proud, as if it was such an honor to be a hair. Lu Zhan was also shocked. Good fellow. A single hair could turn into a hero-rank undead. That was worthy of being a god. What else can I do for Lord Monarch? Lu Zhan asked sincerely. Help Lord Monarch to recruit more believers, and Lord Monarch will give you other instructions. The undead priest said lightly, "Damn, just a hair. What are you being a jerk for?" Lu Zhan cursed inwardly, but his face was full of smiles. "I will build an altar in front of this square later. You can let a few people who are architects cooperate with me." The undead priest said, "Waiting for the altar to be completed, you can perform the death mass. The person you found is good. There are already many prospective believers in this city. As long as you perform a mass once, you should be able to convert to believers." Chapter 120, Height and City. Lu Zhan naturally knew that this guy was referring to Lu Yong. Indeed, Lu Yong originally had an extremely noble belief. After converting to death, he really regarded death as the only means to save the world. In his opinion, death was not real death. It was a belief, a faith. Therefore, he said to everyone in the city with incomparable piety, death was the beginning of eternal life. Can the death mass directly make them believe in death? After thinking about it, Lu Zhan asked, "That was too scary." "Naturally not." The undead priest shook his head. "The mass is just nourishment, letting the seed of faith take root, germinate, and grow into a towering tree. As for the seed, that is an extremely precious thing, and what you need to do is the seed." Lu Zhan nodded. That was to say, what Lu Yong had been doing these days was sowing. "All right, hurry up and build the altar," the undead priest said. Early the next morning, Lu Zhan got up and opened the window. He saw that a large group of people had begun to gather in the square. In the front, a black altar had already been built, which was the death altar. This altar had a unique shape and revealed a strange aura, and the undead priest was standing in the center of the altar. After a while, Everyone in the entire city had gathered here. Now Lu Yong was the undisputed boss in the city, and no one dared to disobey him. Not far away, there were even a few mutated beasts lying on the ground. These days, Lu Yong had been constantly spreading the faith. Many of the mutated beasts had nothing to do, so they would come to listen from time to time, and a few of them had been brainwashed. When everyone arrived, the undead priest spread out his hands and officially launched the skill death mass. In an instant, a strong death aura bloomed around the altar, emitting bursts of extremely strange whispers. Lu Yong and Zhang Tianfu knelt down directly on the ground, looking at the undead priest with a pious expression, and everyone else had more or less intoxicated expressions on their faces. Even Lu Zhan near the window couldn't help but be affected, and his legs couldn't help trembling. Crap! Lu Zhan grabbed the windowsill, standing upright. Want to make him kneel? Impossible. At this moment, a system voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations on successfully harvesting a believer for the Lord of the Undead. At the same time, in the square, a person slowly knelt down. According to the undead priest, that was the seed in this person's heart began to sprout. Next, system sounds rang out from Lu Zhan's mind from time to time, and in the square, the number of people kneeling down was increasing. The entire death mass lasted for a full hour. Besides Lu Yong and Zhang Tianfu, there were as many as 13 people kneeling in the square. Lu Zhan's attributes had obviously increased a lot. Even if these 13 people were not strong, each person's 10% bonus added up to at least 50 or 60 points. Even his intelligence and spirit had increased a lot. Most importantly, these people had a variety of classes, and Lu Zhan could use their skills once a day. As the number and classes of believers continued to expand, he could use more skills. At that time, Lu Zhan could be regarded as an all-class person. Mage, warrior, priest, archer. No matter what class skill, he could use it all, and the power was extremely great. Because at that time, all his attributes would be amplified to an extremely perverted level. This power of faith was too perverted. It was even more cheating than cheating. Soon, the death mass ended. The people in the square were still reluctant to leave, as if they were reminiscing and thinking. And the undead priest's figure had appeared next to Lu Zhan, saying, "From now on, I will stay here and perform a death mass every day." Lu Zhan was naturally hoping for it. It would be better if this guy didn't follow him, but he said with a respectful expression on his face, "Thank you for your hard work. It's all for Lord Monarch." The undead priest looked pious. Haitan City. Before the apocalypse, this was one of the most luxurious cities in the entire country, and its population was naturally extremely large. When the apocalypse broke out, this city produced many strong men. In just 2 weeks, the monsters that had invaded the city had been completely cleaned up, and the entire city had initially restored some social order. Then, the 8 major forces rose and built high walls around them, jointly governing the city. They formulated laws, launched vocational training institutions, and restored various entertainment facilities. Here, it already looked like it did before the apocalypse. Compared with this place, the East Sea was simply a remote and uncivilized place. Of course, apocalyptic resources were limited, and the conditions for living in this city were extremely harsh. Not only did they have to pay a high amount of gold coins every day, but there was also a level elimination system. Those with too low of a level were all eliminated from the city. Here, they only wanted the elite. At this moment, outside the magnificent city gate, Lu Zhan was riding on a fully armored mount, looking at the big city in front of him, full of emotion. For a long time, Haitan City had been known as the largest city of the human race, with many strong men. However, tall trees attract wind. When the real monster army, those terrifying monsters above the hero rank, descended, this city was also hit the hardest in the first time. Humans only held on for less than half a day before a total defeat. Haitan City ceased to exist. That day was not far away. Lu Zhan's trip wasn't naturally to defend the city, but for a dungeon. Next to him were Hu Luer and Jiazhang. The brainwashing methods of that Lu Yong weren't useful for these two, so Lu Zhan had to keep them by his side, letting them constantly accept the influence of his domineering aura. I have seen many posts about this Haitan City for a long time, but I haven't come. The city fee is 500 gold coins. It's a robbery. I, Hu Luer, Only cheat others. How could I let others cheat me? Huluer looked angry. On the other side, Jiazheng looked sighed. I didn't expect that there was such a place in the apocalypse. Even outside the city, listening to the voices inside the city, one could know the prosperity of this city. Woof woof woof. This thing is really uncomfortable. Under Lu Zhan, Bei Lao He was calling out unhappily. Endure for a while. We have a big deal to do here. Keep a low profile. Lu Zhan patted the dog's head and said. This time, he came in disguise, using Lu Fei's identity, Beastmaster. Bei Lao He naturally played the role of his spirit beast. Now Lu Zhan, the information of this manslaughtering king has spread all over the world, naturally including Bei Lao He, this dog. As a result, Lu Zhan let it wear a full body of armor, which looked even more mighty and domineering. Let's go. We're going to enter this city. Lu Zhan waved his hand and walked towards the city gate.